Prologue. A luxurious banquet begins in the grand ballroom, attended by all the nobility of the kingdom. Suddenly, a noble aristocrat enters the banquet hall, attracting the attention of all present. One of the lower-ranking nobles began to discuss the aristocrat who had entered the banquet hall too loudly, and the aristocrat immediately noticed. The noble aristocrat is accompanied by a beautiful lady in a chic white dress. She is very proud that she came to the banquet with this man and shocked the local nobles. The distinguished guests who have excited the guests of the luxurious banquet are accompanied by a mysterious man. On his face is a strange mask that looks like a dog's muzzle. A high-ranking aristocrat and his companion in a white dress stand in the middle of the banquet hall and look around. They are very pleased that they will not miss this wonderful event today. Suddenly, the nobleman accompanying the lady in white heard someone call his companion a princess who could become a bat. These words reached the ears of the nobleman, who decided to punish the gossip for his big mouth. The proud aristocrat walked up to the despised gossip and hit him. The man fell to the floor of the banquet hall. He was very scared and did not know what to do now. Perhaps he would be beaten even more or simply killed. But a lady in a white dress hastened to intervene in this unpleasant situation in all respects. The aristocrat calmed her companion, saying that a person with royal blood in his veins should not waste time and energy on some pathetic rat in human form. The girl in white achieved her goal. She managed to calm her companion and smooth over the inappropriate conflict. The lady smiled mysteriously and told the noble aristocrat that the luxurious banquet was just beginning, so he should save his strength and good mood for further entertainment that was still to come today. The companion of the wise lady in the white dress completely agrees with her. He said that the holiday is only gaining strength. One must be more restrained to taste all its fruits and enjoy them. This is how our story begins. The story of the main character of this story begins. She was born in a beautiful castle of the royal family and is the first princess of the state of Berry. The beautiful castle of the royal family is famous throughout the area for its beauty and grandeur. The main character really likes living in her family estate. The first princess of the Berry Kingdom has a family that she loves very much. A king, a queen, a younger sister, and a brother who is the crown prince and is expected to inherit his father's title in the future. The main character also loves and respects her prosperous and cheerful people, for whom she is ready to sacrifice herself and do everything possible for the population of her kingdom. The first princess decided to sacrifice her social life at the request of her parents for the sake of the crown prince and her younger sister. This is necessary in order to effectively distribute state duties. The girl loves her relatives, so she agreed to this. The main character likes to do important things while her younger brother and sister learn the art of communication at social events and balls. The first princess constantly works for the benefit of her family, subjects, and the state. The girl is engaged in politics, diplomacy, and the economy of the kingdom. And in her free time, the main character studies magical sciences. The royal daughter feels quite happy because her life is eventful and meaningful. But now is the time to drink some aromatic tea and take a break from everyday affairs. The quiet and measured life in the Berry Kingdom went on as usual until a bloody and cruel war with the Sharialt Empire began. From that moment on, the fate of the main character and her family changed dramatically. One day, the king received a message from his enemies saying that his youngest daughter, Nicole, had been taken hostage. Now the ruler of the Berry Kingdom must capitulate. But he does not want to do this and tries to find a way out of this situation. The angry and confused king called the first princess and tearfully asked her to do a favor for her family and the state. At first, the main character did not understand what her father wanted from her, but soon the girl understood everything perfectly. The king asks his eldest daughter to use her enormous magical power and help bring her younger sister home, tearing her away from the clutches of the insidious enemy. The main character listened carefully to her father and immediately agreed to fulfill his request. The first princess said that she was a member of the royal family, so she would definitely intervene in the current situation and take part in the war with the Sharialt Empire. The girl's relatives were very happy when they heard her decisive answer and thought that victory in this cruel war was almost theirs. But everything turned out to be not as simple as they would have liked. The main character did not hesitate and immediately entered into a bloody battle with the enemy troops. She used her magical abilities and scattered the enemy troops. The girl's enormous magical power helped the royal troops achieve an unconditional victory on the battlefield. Thanks to her, many enemy soldiers were defeated and put to shameful flight. It was a brutal and bloody battle that forced the enemy to retreat. But the soldiers of the Berry Kingdom, who fought bravely for their land, also suffered. The forged and experienced enemy still has some reserves that he can send back into battle at any time. Therefore, the soldiers who obey the first princess asked her to finish off the enemy and put an end to him forever. The main character is ready to incinerate the remnants of the enemy troops and turn them into dust and ashes. But the girl began to be overcome by vague doubts. She does not understand why people are sometimes so stupid and cruel that they go to kill each other in thousands. But the first princess quickly came to her senses and overcame her doubts. She understands that she must do everything possible for the sake of her family and loyal subjects, who place all their hopes on the great magical power of the first princess. The main character decided on the final finishing blow, which she wants to deliver to the enemy right now. The sorceress cast a powerful spell and sent a strong stream of magical flame towards the enemy. In this way, this bloody battle was won. But fate had its own plans. As a result of cunning and insidious political manipulations, the Sharialt Empire was able to win the war with the Berry Kingdom. The king decided to sign the capitulation, and his soldiers, who had been shedding blood on the battlefield fighting against the superior forces of the Sharialt Empire, learned about it. The fighters immediately began to grumble that the peace treaty was a betrayal on the part of their ruler. Therefore, they were forced to lay down their arms and surrender. Among the prisoners who surrendered to the mercy of the enemy was the eldest princess, whom everyone knows by the name Lars and also by the nickname Bat. The main character, as a very valuable captive, was sent to the Empire of Shariot, imprisoned in a huge and impregnable castle. The first princess declared her title and her desire to return home by right of honor, or for a good ransom. But the girl's enemies refused her request. So she has to while away her monotonous and dull days in the imperial dungeon. After some time, the main character learned that her family had betrayed her. Her older sister Nicole was freed and returned to the Berry Kingdom, but with the condition that Princess Lars would remain in the Sharialt Empire. This news was a terrible blow to the girl. She remembered her parents, who asked her to sacrifice herself for her younger sister Nicole. Now everything fell into place for the first princess. The jailers mock their noble captive. They tell the girl that her family abandoned her and gave her over to the enemy to be killed. But the main character desperately does not want to believe it. He resists with all his might. One day, a noble aristocrat of the Sharialt Empire suddenly appeared in the dungeon. He decided to look at Princess Lars, who had defeated his troops on the battlefield many times. The nobleman approached the prison cell where the main character was imprisoned. He looked at the girl carefully and said that he could make her his toy at any moment. But the main character answered the young man that he would not receive anything. The noble aristocrat listened attentively to the captive and extended his hand to stroke her beautiful face. Apparently, the nobleman liked the main character, who is known for her beauty. After this, the young man said that one day everything would be accomplished and the Bat Princess would fall, completely submitting to him. The angry girl replied that she was the crown princess of the Berry Kingdom. Therefore, she would not submit to anyone from the Sharialt Empire. The nobleman looked his captive in the eye and said that it would be very foolish of her to refuse his tempting offer. But the Bat Princess would have time to think about it. The mysterious guest left after these words, and the main character was left alone with her thoughts, fears, and doubts. It seems that the first princess of the Berry Kingdom really offended the noble aristocrat who came to her. Perhaps this will cause unpleasant consequences for the girl. And so it happened after some time. Several evil men entered the main character's prison cell and began to torture the girl on the orders of the offended aristocrat. Princess Lars had already seen a lot in this life, but she never expected to be treated like this. The jailers tortured the girl for a long time, causing her great pain and mental suffering. The main character spent a long time in captivity, being subjected to daily excruciating torture by bloodthirsty jailers who received a task from their high-born master and had to break the will of the brave girl at any cost. A few weeks later, the cruel aristocrat came again to look at the first princess of the Berry Kingdom, who had been subjected to excruciating torture all these days. When he saw the main character, he said that she did not look so bad. After this, the aristocrat added that it would be much better for the girl if she did not resist his will and agreed to become his mistress. The main character is very exhausted. She is silent and listens to the man. The girl thought for a moment and said that the aristocrat was trying to deceive her. He didn't need the main character as a lover, but knew information about her native kingdom. The young man listened attentively to his interlocutor and said that he proposed to the first princess of the Berry Kingdom from the bottom of his heart. the aristocrat no longer wanted to hurt the girl. After that, the man removed the bloody bandage from the main character's face to see her eyes. The aristocrat wants Princess Lars to be convinced that he is telling her the truth. To do this, she must look into his eyes. After that, the young man looked her in the eyes and repeated his sincere offer to the proud captive. The man wants the first princess of the Berry Kingdom to become his beloved. The main character looks into the eyes of her tormentor and does not want to believe that he is telling her the truth. The girl still wants to go back home. The proud aristocrat watches his captive closely. He understands why she resists his will and wants to show her what they really think of the first princess in her native kingdom, so that she will lose her previous illusions. The ruler ordered his guards to send the princess to the capital of her native kingdom and abandon her in the middle of the street so that the girl would feel the hatred of her people. The aristocrat watches his captive and thinks that the most painful thing for people is when their illusions and dreams that nourish their fortitude are shattered. The lord must subjugate the girl who has great magical power. Otherwise, he will have to destroy her. But perhaps he will have to do without killing the princess if she takes a realistic look at the situation. A few days later, the main character was taken in shackles to her home kingdom. It turns out that the first princess of the Berry State had been imprisoned for 10 long years. It was a real shock for the girl when she learned about it from her guards. In the dark basement of the prison, time behaves differently than in ordinary life. When the first princess was brought to the capital of the Berry Kingdom, the guards threw her in the middle of the street and told everyone who she was. The girl was immediately attacked by the townspeople. They began to curse her and throw slop at her. A few minutes later, the main character realized that all the city's residents considered her guilty of the bloody war with the Sharialt Empire, in which many citizens of the kingdom died. The girl realized that her relatives had made her the culprit of all the troubles that had happened to the Berry Kingdom. The first princess was also accused of losing the war with the empire thanks to her. The main character is helpless in the middle of the stone pavement, and everyone considers her a traitor and an enemy of the state. This is the result of all the efforts of the first princess of the Berry Kingdom. The unfortunate aristocrat was again imprisoned, but this time by her relatives, who soon discovered her in the middle of the street. Princess Lars still doesn't fully understand what's happening to her. The girl can't understand why her relatives, for whom she sacrificed everything she had, put her in prison. Maybe it's some kind of mistake. After some time, the princess's younger brother came to the dungeon to talk to her. He told his sister that he had always hated her because she was a stranger to him. The young prince said that before the king met his mother and married her, he had a secret first wife who gave birth to Princess Lars. Perhaps she is not the king's daughter, but his brother's. This is not yet known for sure. But it is obvious that this girl is superfluous and alien to the royal family. The main character can't believe what she just heard from her younger brother, but the cruel reality won't change. It's a fact. The young prince added that the king had taken Princess Lars into his family because his brother had powerful magical powers and thought that this would be passed on to his daughter. And this was necessary to strengthen the royal power in the state. When the war with the Sharialt Empire began and the first princess led the royal troops into battle, under the influence of propaganda, all the citizens thought that the girl simply wanted to show off her magical power. The younger brother told the main character that she should not sit over textbooks and books, dealing with state affairs without leaving her room, but rather hang out in high society and make useful contacts. The young prince added that the last message from the king was that Princess Lars was a necessary sacrifice for the future of the Berry Kingdom. After these words, the young man left the prison, leaving the main character to her fate. The entire old world that Princess Lars loved collapsed for her in 1 minute. She steadfastly endured 10 years of hellish torture and captivity and told nothing to her enemies. And all this only to be betrayed by her closest people and put back in a stone bag. Suddenly, the first princess's personal servant appeared in the corridor with a lantern in his hand. He came to support his mistress and feed her so that she would gain strength. The unfortunate girl cries bitterly and does not notice her personal servant, who came to support her in difficult times and put food near the prison bars. Finally, the main character noticed the presence of her butler. She came to her senses a little and asked the servant if he knew what the young prince had just told her. The first princess's assistant looks at her attentively and keeps silent meaningfully. The young man knew everything, but he couldn't tell his mistress about it. Otherwise, it would cause big problems. The main character looked at her butler carefully. She did not hold a grudge against this man, because he had always been faithful to her. Princess Lars thought for a moment and asked the servant to tell her about everything that had happened in the Berry Kingdom during the years she had been away. The butler looks at his mistress carefully and does not know whether he should further traumatize his mistress with his sad story. Finally, the princess's loyal servant made up his mind and told her that the royal family had convinced all the inhabitants of the kingdom that the war with the Shariao Empire had begun because of the main character. This happened on the same day that the girl was captured. Now, the first princess finally realized that she had become a victim of betrayal by her relatives, who had sold her to the Sharialt Empire and made her guilty of all the troubles that had befallen her home country. The main character was just trying for her family, whom she loved very much. Princess Lars also wanted to do everything possible for her state and subjects, but they could not appreciate these efforts. It all ended with the family turning their backs on the first princess, accusing her of starting a bloody war with a superior enemy. The girl was given over to be slaughtered, like a sacrificial animal. It's just awful. The main character immediately remembered the words of the ruler of the empire, who said that she would soon see for herself, and this man turned out to be the only one who told her the truth. The first princess incinerated thousands of enemies for the sake of her country, thanks to her magical abilities. But it all turned against her. Now the main character's former subjects consider her a traitor and want her shameful death. And there is no doubt that the royal family will gladly fulfill the crowd's desire. Realizing the gravity of her situation, Princess Lars realized that in the near future she would only face a shameful death on the chopping block, which was soaked in the blood of the enemies of the people and the kingdom of Berry. Very soon, the main character will ascend the scaffold to the cries of the raging crowd that once loved her, and will lose her head thanks to the well-honed blow of the royal executioner. And at this time, the royal family will watch the shameful execution of the first princess and enjoy this spectacle. The main character imagined herself on the scaffold in her death throes, and this became the last straw for her patience. From now on, Princess Lars no longer has a family. They are traitors and enemies who thirst for her death and shame. The girl will never forgive them for this. The prisoner remembered the emperor's face and his words that the princess's magical power would be very useful to him, so he wanted her to be with him. But first, the girl must lose all her previous illusions. The main character will no longer beg for mercy or forgiveness. Now she will take what is rightfully hers herself. The princess's enemies have chosen their own fate. The girl realized that she would never have her old life again. It was as if a sharp guillotine of hatred and malice had cut off the main character's past and divided her life into two halves. And at that moment, the first princess died on the scaffold, becoming a victim of her family's insidious plot. A beautiful sunny morning has come. The main character, as usual, woke up in her bed and decided to look at herself in the mirror. Today the girl saw a strange dream, as if she died under the knife of the guillotine. Princess Lars looked around. She couldn't understand how she ended up in her room again. After all, she had just been on the scaffold and lost her head to the joyful cries of the rioting mob. The main character turned her attention to her personal assistant and maids, who had already come to the first princess's room to help her change clothes and have breakfast. The girl doesn't understand what happened to her and why she instantly found herself back in her room. But it's not that bad if you think about it. The first princess looked closely at her personal assistant and noticed a strange detail. The main character's butler looked many years younger than when she last saw him in the royal prison. The main character looked at herself in the mirror again and realized that she too looked much younger. She had looked like this long before the war with the Sharialt Empire began. The first princess's maid poured her some aromatic and invigorating tea, saying that Princess Nicole's birthday celebration had been a success. But now the girl needed to have a good rest. The maid said that time was passing very quickly because yesterday the main character's younger sister had already turned 16. The first princess looks at her maid carefully, and it seems to her that she is playing a joke on her. As far as the main character remembers, her younger sister is now much older. The main character decided to understand the current situation and understand what was happening now. Maybe those around her just decided to play a joke on her. The first princess asked her maid what year it was according to the continental calendar. The maid gave the exact date of today, and the main character realized that she had traveled back in time more than 10 years. But that couldn't be. The maid said that she was very interested in what was written in the letter that came from the Sharialt Empire. Maybe it was about the upcoming wedding of Princess Nicole. This seemed very interesting and funny to the main character. Princess Lars asked her maid when exactly the letter she was talking about had arrived. The maid replied that the message had arrived this morning. The main character thought about her younger sister's wedding with the ruler of the Chariot Empire. She assumed that the letter did not mention the exact name of the bride. Perhaps it meant one of the princesses of the Berry Kingdom. The first princess remembered what started the Great War with the Empire. Perhaps this is the same letter after which the main character went to the front and was captured by the enemy. Possessing powerful magical powers, the girl burned thousands of enemy soldiers and became the victim of an insidious conspiracy that led her under the merciless knife of the guillotine. The main character listened carefully to her personal maid. Now the girl needs to think carefully before taking the next steps to change her future destiny and not become a victim of a conspiracy. The first princess looks at herself in the mirror again. The girl wants to make sure that she has no scars from the long imprisonment and torture she experienced in prison. The main character was convinced that everything was in order with her appearance. In addition, she even looked 10 years younger. But the girl felt a panic attack. If she made any mistake, she would end up on the scaffold. It was terrible. The maid and personal assistant of the first princess watched their mistress closely. They cannot understand why the girl suddenly turned pale and began to tremble with fear. The main character remembered everything that happened to her before returning to the past. Princess Lars was horrified and realized that no one would believe her if she told anyone about this. She urgently needed to come up with a plan of action that would help change her fate. The first princess looked at her reflection in the mirror and saw herself with a bloody bandage over her eyes, wounded by the jailers. She again remembered the hellish torments she had experienced in captivity. The main character's nerves couldn't take it anymore. Princess Lars quickly jumped up from her chair and prepared to get rid of this reflection and her sad memories forever. The main character hit the mirror with her fist with all her might and smashed it to pieces. The first princess no longer needs her treacherous reflection, which drives her crazy. After that, the girl breathed a sigh of relief and felt much better. The first princess promised herself that she would never again become someone's victim and would not let anyone hurt her. No longer will the angry and stupid crowd thirst for her blood on the royal scaffold. From this day on, Princess Lars will do everything so that the culprits of her suffering are punished and get what they really deserve. It is time to change her fate. So thought the main character. Now the girl knows how her relatives, for whom she was ready to give her life, really treat her. But from now on, the first princess begins her game, in which she will be the only winner. The main character stands in front of a mirror that she has just broken. Princess Lars realizes that she has just broken not her reflection, but a past life that will never exist again. The girl decided that she would never forgive her relatives who used her and put her to a shameful death on the scaffold. From now on, there is no forgiveness for them, and there never will be, even when the main character's revenge occurs. A frightened guard ran into the first princess's chambers after she broke the mirror. The warrior thought that something had happened to the mistress. But the main character quickly gathered her strength and came to her senses. She apologized for her behavior to everyone present and said that she had just been a little tired lately. After this, Princess Lars added that there was no need to tell the king and queen about this incident. They had enough to worry about with the letter that had arrived this morning from the Chariot Empire. The maid said that she would keep today's events a secret. The main character thanked her and smiled mysteriously. Princess Lars calmed down a little and came to her senses. She looked at the shards of the broken mirror and thought that she could no longer allow anyone to take advantage of her. Now the main character is experiencing mental anguish that is stronger than the pain she endured during prison torture. When you are betrayed by loved ones, it is felt 100 times more painful. The princess's maid began cleaning her chambers. After a while, the king's maid came and said that he had announced an immediate family council. Princess Lars already knows what the king's personal maid will say now. She said that in view of the new circumstances, all members of the royal family must immediately gather for a family council. The main character listened carefully to her father's maid and said that she would soon appear at the family council, which was gathered because of the letter that came from the Chariot Empire. The first princess looks around carefully. She looks at the servants who are tidying up her room. The girl thinks that all these people have known the truth about Princess Lars's true origin for a long time, but no one tells her anything. The main character gathered her thoughts and decided that now she would play her secret game. Let everyone think that the first princess knows nothing and continues to be a harmless victim of circumstances. The girl ordered her maids to finish cleaning her room and went out to see her family. The main character walks down the corridor of the royal castle and thinks about the letter that came this morning from the Chariot Empire. If the first princess is right, then in this letter the emperor expressed his desire for one of the princesses of the Berry Kingdom to become his empress. In Princess Lars's past life, the emperor came up with a cunning plan. He married Princess Nicole and took her hostage, forcing the Berry Kingdom to capitulate to the Chariot Empire. Silly Princess Nicole never realized what a big disaster her wedding had brought to her kingdom. She always thought only of herself. When the youngest princess was taken hostage by the emperor, King Barry decided to start a war in order to secretly exchange Princess Lars for his beloved daughter. The main character remembered the piercing gaze of the emperor, who told her in prison that she would soon die because of her stupid illusions. And then Princess Lars faced accusations of treason, disappointment in her own family, hatred of her subjects, and a shameful execution on the scaffold by beheading. This is a terrible story that the main character does not even want to remember. The main character remembers all the humiliations she had to endure at the mercy of her family. But now everything will be different. The predator and the victim have changed places. Princess Lars decided to become a villain, as her parents, brother, and sister wanted. Now they will learn what the wrath of a kind and patient person is, who is driven out of his mind by his enemies. A few minutes later, the main character came to the dining room, where the rest of the royal family had already gathered for an urgent family council. The first princess drank some aromatic tea and looked closely at her parents. The girl noticed that the king and queen were still young. So, she really did return to the past. The main character's father announced that the ruler of the Chariot Empire wants to marry the princess of the Berry Kingdom and declare her empress with all the ensuing consequences. Prince Eric was very excited by this news. The young aristocrat jumped up from his seat and asked the king if it was true, or if the cunning emperor was playing some kind of wicked game again. Princess Nicole was simply shocked by her father's words. She did not expect that the great ruler of the empire would want to marry a representative of a less noble family than his own. Meanwhile, the main character listens attentively to what all members of her family are saying and does not interfere in the conversation. The king announced that Princess Nicole should become the emperor's wife. The girl listens to her father and thinks that by all the rules he should have chosen her as the emperor's wife. But now, knowing the whole truth about her true origin, Princess Lars is not surprised by the king's decision. The main character decided to play her secret game of revenge on those who betrayed her. So the first princess smiled at her sister Nicole and said that she was a great candidate for the role of empress. Princess Lars now knows that she would never have been chosen to marry the emperor. The main character's family has always loved only Nicole and secretly despised the first princess. The main character was previously in the dark and was constantly busy with state affairs and her education, helping the king in everything. The girl should have realized earlier that her relatives were using her. Princess Lars, at the request of her father, entered into a bloody war to save her younger sister, who was held hostage by the emperor. For the sake of her family, whom she loved very much, the main character went to kill thousands of people who came to conquer her native kingdom. The first princess put herself in mortal danger hundreds of times during brutal battles. She fought for her country and family, so she always emerged victorious. But it all ended with Princess Lars being betrayed by her trusted close relatives and handed over to a ruthless enemy who imprisoned the girl and subjected her to excruciating torture. Prince Eric intervened in the conversation. He said that he fully agreed with the king's decision. Princess Nicole would become a magnificent empress who would glorify her family for centuries. The main character watches her relatives closely at a family council. The girl prefers to remain silent and listen rather than say anything. Princess Lars noticed that her younger sister seemed sad for some reason. She was probably afraid of the prospect of becoming a powerful empress. The main character quickly assessed the situation and decided to act immediately in order to win her secret game. Princess Lars apologized for interrupting the conversation and told her relatives that she wanted to express her opinion on the current situation. The main character said that she does not support Princess Nicole's candidacy for the role of empress. The youngest princess listened attentively to her sister and did not believe what she had just heard from her relative. The confused girl did not understand what was happening now. Prince Eric looks at the main character and begins to frown. He also really didn't like the position that Princess Lars voiced. The king and his wife stare at their eldest daughter. The queen says that her eldest daughter should support her younger sister, as she has always done until today. This is no time for girlish selfishness. The main character replied that Nicole would become a wonderful empress, but there is a very weak point in the king's decision that could lead to tragic consequences if it is not taken into account and corrected. Princess Nicole relaxed a little and wanted to listen to her sister's opinion because she believes that she is on her side and will now say something very useful for her. The main character thought for a moment before continuing her speech. She said that Emperor Zephon Barb Verbena had always been known for his cold-bloodedness and extreme cruelty. This fact must be taken into account before marrying Nicole to such a tyrant. Princess Lars added that Nicole, who has a gentle character and grew up in love, will definitely be scared of a harsh monarch. This could be very traumatic for the unfortunate girl. The main character continues her psychological game. She said that everyone has heard about the cruel nature of the emperor, who often tortures his prisoners himself. Once, Zephon Barb Verbena killed his father to seize the imperial throne. Therefore, it is nothing for him to kill his wife. The first princess remembered how the emperor's soldiers fought and realized that the ruler never allowed them to retreat. Otherwise, these fighters would inevitably die a painful death. The main character once again plunged into negative memories of her past life. This made the girl think and feel a little sad. But Princess Lars has no time for this nonsense. She must act now. Prince Eric listened carefully to his elder sister and said that, besides, the emperor already had 6 concubines. It turned out that the monarch was partial to women. This was not good for the future empress. The main character agreed with her younger brother and added that there were strange rumors that the concubines were constantly trying to kill each other in order to eliminate their rivals for a place on the emperor's bed. The first princess hugged Nicole and said that the girl would have to endure terrible treatment in a foreign country and in absolute solitude when none of her relatives would be near her. It was terrible. Relatives look closely at Princess Lars and understand that there is a grain of truth in her words. Maybe the girl is right about something. The main character hugged her younger sister and began to stroke her head, saying that she could not allow such a terrible fate for Princess Nicole. The first princess watches her relatives, who now look very confused. The girl realized that she played her game correctly and almost achieved her goal. Now the main character has to take the last step. She said that she will go instead of Princess Nicole to the capital of the Sherialt Empire. This must be done to protect the younger sister from the cruel emperor and his predatory morals. The king and queen listen attentively to their eldest daughter. At the moment, they are confused and do not know what to say to the main character. Perhaps her proposal makes sense. The king's eldest daughter thought for a moment and added that there would be a more suitable suitor for Princess Nicole in her native kingdom of Berry. The girl smiled meaningfully and said that for the sake of her younger sister, she could become her replacement as Empress. Nothing can be done, but duty and love for the family makes the first princess make such a sacrifice. The main character understands perfectly well that her parents wanted to make Nicole the Empress, not her. But now it will be very difficult for them to implement their insidious plan. When Princess Lars finished her speech, the dining room was silent for a few seconds. The royal family is in a state of shock and confusion after hearing the main character's proposal. The first princess made the right bet because the king and queen are most concerned about the safety of their beloved daughter. They will most likely accept their eldest daughter's proposal and give her in marriage to the cruel emperor. The main character looked at her younger sister, who was thinking about the words of the first princess, and her heart ached with longing and resentment towards Nicole, her brother and parents. Princess Lars thought again that once she could have given her life for her younger sister, and she would have done it without a second's hesitation. But now the whole truth has been revealed, and the past life can no longer be returned, and the grievances inflicted cannot be forgotten. The king of the Berry state thought about his eldest daughter's proposal and made a final decision. The monarch accepts the first princess's proposal, but he does so with great reluctance because he does not want to put his daughter in danger. The main character was very happy when she finally heard her father's approving answer. The girl rejoices because her plan worked. Now she can become a great empress and gain enough power and resources to carry out her revenge. At that moment, the first princess remembered what Prince Eric had told her when she was in the royal prison. The young man had told his sister the words of the king, who had said that a necessary evil is such because it is necessary. Princess Nicole immediately congratulated her sister and said that she would become a wonderful empress. This would be a new page in the life of the first princess, which would bring only good things to everyone. The main character understands perfectly well that her younger sister is very jealous of her now, and all her congratulations are absolutely hypocritical. But the girl continues to play at being nice and smiles at everyone around her. Prince Eric said that he would accept whatever his father decided, so he had nothing more to add to the situation. If the king had decided that Princess Lars should marry the emperor, then so be it. The king and queen became very cheerful and said that Princess Lars was the honor and pride of the family. They had no doubt that they had made the right decision and were sending their eldest daughter into the hands of the cruel Emperor Zephon Barb Bourbon. The main character listened to all her relatives who were lavishing hypocritical words and praises on her. The girl smiled at all these people and secretly hated them. A few months later, the emperor and his bride decided to have a luxurious wedding in the ancestral castle of the ruler of the great empire of Chariot. The main character is dressed in a luxurious white dress, decorated with various jewels. The groom is also dressed in all white and gold. The wedding ceremony has begun. The emperor looks confidently ahead. He is, as always, reserved and silent. The monarch today leads his bride down the aisle so that she will become his wife and give him an heir to the throne. The main character is very happy with what is happening now. Now she will marry the most powerful man in the empire, and no one will be afraid of her. By the will of the monarch, his wife's enemies will be destroyed in a few minutes. The royal family watches the wedding ceremony with great attention and joy. But they are glad that their beloved daughter Nicole is completely safe. The parents think about their eldest daughter only when they want to use her for their own purposes. The ladies of the court watch with envy the wedding of the emperor and the first princess of the Berry Kingdom. All the ladies would like to become the empress, but the main character turned out to be more fortunate. Princess Lars feels happy. She looks great in her wedding dress and basks in the rays of her glory. Now the girl will forever forget what loneliness is, because the enormous power of the Empress is in her hands. The main character is no longer afraid of anything. She decided not to be a victim anymore, so she came up with a great plan. The girl will conquer her native kingdom of Berry herself to punish the traitors who deceived her all her life. Finally, the priest performed the wedding ceremony and asked the newlyweds to swear allegiance to each other. Everything is going according to Princess Lars's plan. The main character boldly looks into the eyes of the emperor of the great empire, because this time he is not her jailer, but her legal husband. Zephon Barb Verbena also looks into the eyes of her empress and prepares to seal their union with the first marital kiss. Princess Lars thought that something had changed in her soul towards the cruel emperor. Now she looks at the bloodthirsty tyrant completely differently. The newly minted empress knows that in alliance with this strong man, she will be able to defeat all her enemies and take revenge on the traitors who treacherously abandoned her to her fate. From now on and forever, Princess Lars becomes the empress of the state of Chariot. She remembers all her enemies and methodically implements her cunning plans into reality in order to inexorably bring just vengeance to all who deserve it. The emperor and his wife sealed their union with the first wedding kiss. Let's dive into the history of the Chariot Empire for a moment. It is a country that has vast territories where the climate is cool. This state has always prospered by capturing new territories. The main character knows that in every kingdom, magical power is transmitted through blood. The same thing happened in the state of Berry. Princess Lars has been given powerful fire magic. This power was given to the girl by her biological father, who is the brother of the king who adopted his niece, but did not tell her about it. In the Chariot Empire, hereditary magicians possess healing powers that can cure any existing disease. It so happens that in all countries of the continent, the most talented possessors of magical powers are representatives of the ruling families. In the state of Berry, such people are the king and Prince Eric. The queen and Princess Nicole also have magical powers. They are much stronger than those of ordinary nobles of the kingdom, but weaker than those of the king and prince. Princess Lars inherited the purest and strongest blood from her father. She possesses extraordinary magical knowledge and abilities, even compared to her relatives. The real mother of the main character, before her marriage to the king of the state of Berry, was engaged to his younger brother, who possessed the same powerful magical power. It was passed on to Princess Lars. A special story happened with the emperor of the state of Chariot, Zephon Barba Verbena. His path to the imperial throne was not as simple as it might seem at first glance. The previous emperor had 10 concubines, so he had a large number of children, but the most powerful magical abilities were transferred to Zephon Barb Verbena. Less than a year after his father declared the young man his heir, he took over the imperial throne. It is said that the young monarch took advantage of the chaos of war and killed his father to seize power. After ascending to the throne, Zephon Barb Verbena expanded the territory of the Chariot Empire even more and took 6 mistresses who looked at the main character with envy during the wedding ceremony. These ladies live in the same palace and have great power in the state. This state of affairs continued even after the main character became the emperor's legal wife. He did not stop visiting his concubines. Princess Lars lives in the imperial castle. Her personal servant is next to her. She thinks that Nicole could not survive in such a hostile environment. The young emperor immediately told his wife that he had no intention of helping her in her difficult relationship with her concubines. He recommended that the Empress simply ignore these empty and stupid women. The monarch said these words immediately after the wedding ceremony. After that, the young emperor told his wife that he had nothing more to say to her and went away somewhere, leaving the main character alone. The newly minted Empress did not see her husband again that day. She does not know where he disappeared to or what he did in the evening and at night, because the emperor did not come to spend the night with her either. The girl guesses that her husband had a wonderful time in the arms of his concubines. But this does not matter to her, because both newlyweds entered into a marriage of convenience, not love. In this situation, the only person the main character can trust is her personal servant named Shin. She could take one maid with her to the imperial castle, but the girl chose her valet. In his past life, Shin was a friend of Princess Lars who supported her when she was imprisoned and told her everything that happened in the Berry Kingdom during her absence. The main character feels gratitude to this young man who always takes care of her. The Empress also trusts him and can count on his loyalty. The girl decided to give her personal servant a little test. She asked the young valet how he felt about his mistress becoming the emperor's wife and now living in his palace, which was full of enemies and ill-wishers. Servant Shin answered without hesitation that he does not decide such questions. The only thing that is important to him is that he carried out the order that was given to him. That is the main thing. The young valet's answer did not completely satisfy the main character. She cannot fully understand whether the servant supports her in the current situation. Theoretically, Shin can spy against the girl in favor of her father. The main character looked at her personal servant carefully and thought that he was a very mysterious young man, whom she in fact knew very little. Perhaps he was not a person at all. Shin Faniworth worked in the royal palace for a very long time and always performed his duties perfectly. But he was distinguished by his silence and uncommunicativeness with others. The main character remembered that in her past life, her personal servant stayed with her when everyone in her native kingdom abandoned her and began to openly hate her, thirsting for the death of the first princess. When his mistress was in prison, Shin Faniworth brought her food every day and supported her morally. The faithful servant told Princess Lars about everything that was currently happening in her native kingdom. The young valet said that he had finished combing his mistress's hair. At that moment, the Empress thought that Shin Faniworth, due to his character, had always treated her without prejudice. The main character thanked her valet for his services and looked at him meaningfully. The girl wants to know everything she can about her mysterious personal servant. The Empress looked around carefully and noticed that during the entire time she had been in the imperial palace, not a single maid had come to her room to clean it. All the work was done by Shin Faniworth. The main character is grateful to her faithful valet that he did not let her down in this strange situation. He simply does his job and does not ask unnecessary questions. At carefully, Sheena Fenivorsa thinks that all the local maids deliberately do not come to clean her room, thus showing the newly minted Empress their disdain and disrespect. Today, the main character tried to call one of the maids, but she pretended not to hear her and simply walked past her mistress. This is just some kind of mockery. The Empress remembered her past incarnation and the letters her younger sister Nicole sent home to complain about the terrible living conditions in the imperial castle. The youngest princess also wrote in her tearful letters that the local maids treated her very badly, slandered her during dinner, and did not clean her room. The main character remembered all this and thought that she could endure any domestic difficulties if she were on a military campaign. But in the castle of her lawful husband, the Empress will behave differently. She will not leave it like that. The new Empress came out of her chambers into the corridor and asked the first servant she came across to bring her a glass of water. But the maid pointedly ignored her mistress. Shin Faniworth noticed this and said that he would immediately bring his mistress a glass of water. But the Empress stopped him. She wanted one of the local maids who worked in the imperial palace to carry out her order. The main character approached the maid who was standing not far from her and again gave her the same order to see her reaction. This treatment of the impudent maid had some effect. The maid was frightened because she did not expect the new Empress to be so bold and decisive. The main character decided that she would no longer stand on ceremony with the maid who ignored her orders and acted as if the Empress did not exist. The girl grabbed the maid by the collar and asked her if she was deaf. After that, the new mistress pushed the impudent maid hard. She fell on the marble floor of the corridor and was completely confused by the surprise. The maid does not understand what she needs to do now to save herself from the wrath of the angry Empress. The main character cast a magic spell to demonstrate her fiery magic to the disobedient maid. From that day on, everyone who works in the imperial palace must understand that the Empress is not to be trifled with. After that, the fire mistress asked the frightened maid why everyone was ignoring her and who had given such an order. If the maid did not answer, she would die immediately in terrible agony. The maid answered the angry Empress that the head maid had given her such an order. The main character listened to the frightened girl and thought about her answer. It was all very strange. After this, the Empress released the unfortunate servant and ordered her to immediately bring her a glass of water. The maid immediately ran to carry out her mistress's order. Now she became much more accommodating. A few minutes later, the maid returned to her mistress and brought her a glass of clean water. The Empress decided to show her power again and splashed the water on the maid. After that, the main character decided to come up with an alibi for the unfortunate girl, whom she felt sorry for. The Empress said that she poured water on the maid so that the head maid would not suspect anything and think that the girl did not tell the mistress the truth about the order to ignore her. The young maid was glad that the Empress had forgiven her and wanted to help her in the current situation. So she thanked her mistress and said that from now on she would always serve the new mistress. The main character told the young maid that she could go free. After that, the maid left, and the Empress decided to think about the situation. Now everything became clear to the main character. Previously, she would have been very upset if she had learned that all the servants were ordered to ignore her on the territory of the imperial palace. But now the girl has become much stronger. Princess Lars went through terrible trials during her previous incarnation. Now she has returned 10 years into the past, has become a powerful empress, and will not miss the opportunity to change the script of her destiny. The main character remembered everything that the young maid told her. It turns out that the senior maid received a bribe from the emperor's fourth concubine so that the maids would ignore the empress. The young maid also confessed to her mistress that her boss was in cahoots with the emperor's sixth concubine. Therefore, the main character must be very careful while she is in the palace. The empress is in her chambers, resting after interrogating all the maids she could find. Now the girl analyzes the information she received. The main character thought for a while and came to the conclusion that she needed to interrogate the head maid, who had given all the maids under her orders to ignore the empress. The girl ordered Shin Fenneworth to bring the head maid to her immediately. When the empress's personal valet left her chambers, she smiled mysteriously and said that she now needed to prepare for the arrival of the head maid so that the conversation would be more effective. A few minutes later, Shin Fenneworth found the head maid and told her to come to the empress immediately. The woman expressed her displeasure at this and replied that she was too busy with other things at the moment. But the empress's personal servant said that the matter could not be delayed, and the maid's refusal would be considered treason, for which she would pay with her head. The senior maid had to obey and head to the new mistress's chambers. A few minutes later, the maid and Shin Fenneworth came to the empress's chambers. The main character ordered them to enter the room and close the door behind them. The empress sits in her luxurious chair, which she finds very comfortable. She smiles meaningfully at the head maid and says that she has some important questions that she would like to ask the woman immediately. The maid will have to think carefully before giving her answers to the questions posed, because lying will be punished by death. The head maid does not have much choice, but she does have one. The empress looked closely at the experienced maid and pointed to the disorder that was happening in her chambers. The main character said that chaos is always exciting, but not in peaceful life. Usually, it is inherent only in total war. The head maid listened to her new mistress and looked around carefully. She saw what a mess was going on in her room and asked what was going on. The experienced maid immediately noticed that the empress herself had scattered things around her room, but she did not show that she realized it. The main character asked the maid why no one was cleaning her chambers. The empress mocked the bribed palace worker. The main character ironically stated that she was very lonely all these few days that she spent in her room without the services of the local servants. The head maid listened attentively to her new mistress and asked why she was telling her all this now. The maid did not yet understand that the empress had decided to teach her an important lesson for the future. The experienced maid has no choice but to completely deny her involvement in the new empress's room not being cleaned. The head maid said that all the maids were inactive only because they did not like the new mistress. Apparently, the head of the maids does not understand that her plot has been exposed. She continues to deny her guilt and looks at the Empress with hatred. The main character and her personal servant listen attentively to the experienced maid and understand that she is lying. The Empress said that she has enough power to punish her subordinate exemplarily. The head maid continues to insist on her loyalty to her new mistress. She said that she provided the Empress with one of the best rooms in the imperial palace. This is her merit. In this castle, the head maid's wish is the law for all the maids. Therefore, they will continue to do a thorough cleaning of the young Empress's chambers. After this, the head maid looked meaningfully at her mistress and said that she had already done a lot for the young wife of her emperor, despite the fact that her title was only a formality and did not give her any power here. The maid thought for a moment and added that the young ruler already had many worthy wives. Therefore, the young Empress should not forget the true state of affairs. Now the head maid decided to take all the blame off herself again. She said that the maids in this castle loved and respected the emperor's mistresses more, so they did not want to follow the orders of a worthless princess nicknamed Bat. The main character listens attentively to the head maid and cannot believe that this woman dared to do such impudence. She will have to answer for her impudence and stupidity. The head of the maids decided to ease the tense situation a little and said that perhaps she would one day recognize the main character as her empress. She added that then the attitude of the other maids towards their new mistress would change. In the meantime, the young empress should be grateful for what she has and not get upset over any little things. The head maid began to attack the main character again. She said that the young empress should clean her own room because the head of the maids was not going to serve a girl with plebeian blood in her veins. After these words of the impudent maid, the patience of the main character snapped. She stopped the woman, who was about to leave, by lifting her leg and placing it on the maid's shoulder. This scared her very much. After that, the main character said that she was convinced that the head maid still did not understand who was in charge here. Now the girl will show the impudent servant that she is her true empress, who should be respected and obeyed. The head maid realized that the mistress was not going to joke with her now, and that she would be punished for her insolence. The woman was very frightened and did not know what to do or say. The main character looked her interlocutor in the eyes and said that she was not going to tolerate such an attitude towards her person, even if everyone here considered her only a formal empress. The head maid was speechless with fear. The girl did not let go of the impudent maid. She asked why the subordinate had now lost her pride and was trembling with fear. The maid continues to tremble and remain silent. She has already guessed that she has said too much today, and now she will have to pay dearly for it. The main character grabbed the head maid by the hair and ordered her personal servant to hand her the scissors. The frightened woman noticed the gleam of sharp steel and was completely horrified. Shin Faniworth handed his mistress a pair of sharp scissors so that she could do whatever she had in mind. It would be a fine lesson in obedience for the impudent maid who had forgotten her place in this palace. The head maid is in complete horror. She asked the young empress what she was going to do with her now, but the main character remains silent and gets down to business. The young empress showed her interlocutor a pair of sharp scissors and said that in honor of their acquaintance, she would limit herself to the woman's hair today. But next time, another part of the impudent servant's body would suffer if she did not correct her behavior. The head maid listened to the young mistress and began to beg for mercy. She told the main character that she would take back all her words and offer the girl a sincere apology. The woman realized that all this was useless, and the young empress would not back down from accomplishing her plan. She began to break free from the girl's embrace and cut her cheek on the sharp scissors. The main character ordered the head maid not to twitch. Otherwise, other parts of her body might get hurt. Now the young empress will give her subordinate a more suitable hairstyle so that she will learn this lesson of obedience for a long time. The young empress looked closely at the head maid, who was in a state of terror. The girl said that the maid should not worry because she was close to the emperor, and he would heal any scratch she had. The unfortunate woman continues to ask for forgiveness and mercy from the main character, but the girl remains adamant in her intention to teach her interlocutor a lesson. The head of the maids said that she would immediately order her subordinates to do a general cleaning of the young empress's chambers. The main character looks at her interlocutor and smiles mysteriously. The girl told the head maid that she was talking complete nonsense now. Only the empress can give orders here. Therefore, the mistress orders the head maid to personally do a general cleaning in her room, without involving other maids. And the main character will closely monitor this. The empress succeeded in her endeavors. In a couple of hours, her room was perfectly tidy and clean. The senior maid personally took care of this under the sensitive guidance of the main character. But before the general cleaning of her chambers, the young mistress gave the senior maid a new hairdo, cutting her hair almost to the roots with sharp scissors. Soon, everyone who lived and worked in the imperial palace learned about these events. It's tea time. The maids are in a great mood and discuss the latest news while pouring tea for the young empress. The girls admire the actions of the main character and how she put the senior maid in her place. The young empress drinks aromatic tea, listens to the gossip of her maids, and enjoys the perfect cleanliness of her luxurious room. Now she is happy with her stay in the imperial palace. The surprised maids cannot understand how their new mistress managed to tidy up her room in such a short period of time with the help of the head maid and win the respect of all the servants. The poorly educated maids continue to secretly watch the main character and gossip about her. One of the maids said that the young empress has a nickname. They call her Bat. One day, Princess Lars deposed her younger brother in order to usurp power in the Berry Kingdom in the future. The second gossip said that the young lady had become known in her country as a real villain. Those in the know say that Princess Lars has greatly raised taxes on the common people in order to obtain financial resources for holding constant celebrations and banquets. The stupid gossip added that the young empress had recently rewritten all the laws of her native kingdom in her favor, threatening her blood father with fire magic. Otherwise, she would have easily burned the unfortunate king. The evil and unprincipled Princess Lars has subjugated all her unfortunate relatives, who unquestioningly carry out all her orders. It's just awful. All the members of the royal family in the Berry state have naturally yellow hair, but only the first princess is a brunette. It's all very strange. The maid continued her story about the young empress's past. She said that Princess Lars was popularly known as the Bat because of her immoral behavior and black hair, which distinguished the girl from the rest of the royal family. There are rumors that the young lady is not a blood relative of the king of the Berry state. Perhaps she is the illegitimate daughter of the queen, but this is not certain. The truth is hidden behind 7 seals. Such stupid and false gossip is spreading in the imperial palace. It means that it is beneficial to someone. Meanwhile, in the emperor's office, his personal assistant reports on what the ruler's wife managed to do today. In addition, the monarch was told that the senior maid had her hair cut short by the angry empress. The emperor of the empire listened attentively to the speaker and said that his wife could have fun as she pleased. So the head maid deserved what the empress did to her. The young lord thought for a moment and said that the head maid's hair would soon grow back. Therefore, he did not see anything terrible in what had happened to her. The action takes place again in the main character's room. She is talking to her personal assistant, who tells his mistress that the young empress needs to make new acquaintances. Sheen Fennyworth added that in order to get closer to other local aristocrats, the main character needs to arrange frequent formal tea parties with them. The main character listened carefully to her personal assistant and thought about whether the emperor's proud concubines would want to take part in these events. The valet reminded his mistress that a dinner with the ruler of the empire was planned for that evening, which also needed to be used to strengthen social ties. The young empress listened to her speaker and thought that she would have to do a lot of work to win the respect and love of the local aristocrats, who simply hated her. The main character read the invitation to dinner with her husband, which was handed to her by her personal assistant. After that, the girl asked him if she should go to the planned meeting with the emperor. Shin Fennyworth replied that the lady should do as she sees fit. The young empress carefully reread the tea party invitation she had received and realized that it had been sent by one of the emperor's concubines. This socialite's name was Eliza Annette. The main character has already met this mistress of her husband. But this happened during the previous incarnation of Princess Lars, when she was sitting in prison. That day, the emperor's 4 concubines decided to look at the famous princess of the Berry state, who distinguished herself in the war and received the nickname Bat for this. All these noble ladies laughed at the unfortunate girl who refused to become the emperor's mistress, just like them. Then Eliza Annette showed more malice than all the ladies present, and said that her nickname suited the main character very well. The emperor's 4th concubine added that the prisoner could ask her for a glass of clean water if she begged her for it on her knees. Eliza Annette looked closely at the girl, exhausted from hunger and thirst, and said that she had no honor at all, so she could calmly kneel down and ask for water. These neat society ladies continued to mock Princess Lars, even when she lost her sight due to the excruciating torture of cruel jailers. The main character forever remembered the mocking words and laughter of these despicable mistresses of the emperor, who never need anything and enjoy all the fruits of life at the imperial court. The young empress remembered all these terrible events from her past life and told her personal assistant that she would accept the invitation to tea. Let Shin Fennyworth order the maids to prepare a new evening dress for the mistress. The main character's personal servant bowed respectfully to her and said that he would immediately do everything exactly as she ordered. The young empress smiled mysteriously and thought that she would destroy her enemies one by one in turn. They would all get what they deserved. It was only a matter of time. Soon, the emperor's concubines gathered together to have a traditional tea party and discuss the latest events happening in the imperial palace. The girl in the blue dress said that she could not even imagine how strong the young empress turned out to be. After all, she easily put the head maid, who has a grumpy character, in her place. The concubine in the green dress said that the new mistress had an even tougher character. After these words, the girl laughed loudly. The other girls, who are sitting at the table and drinking tea with sweets, also picked up the laughter of their interlocutor. They mock not only the character of the main character, but also her nickname Bat. One of the girls stopped laughing and began to praise Eliza Annette, who was wearing an emerald dress today and was watching her friends attentively, listening to their idle gossip. The monarch's concubine continued to praise Eliza Annette and said that only such a girl was suitable as a wife for a powerful emperor, and not some provincial plebeian from the provinces. Another lady said that the young empress uses her hands on her maids so that they obey her and punishes them exemplarily. But if she attacks secular ladies, she will pay dearly for it. The concubine in the blue dress said that the young mistress would face terrible punishment from the powerful emperor if she dared to offend any of his close ladies. Suddenly, the main character entered the room in her new outfit. She looked gorgeous. The girl greeted all the emperor's concubines and said that she was very happy to see them all in one place. The socialite ladies look attentively at the unexpected guest and remain silently. They are not overly delighted by the visit of the young empress, but they understand that now they will have to somehow communicate with the new mistress. Eliza Annette was the first to pull herself together, because it was she who had invited the young empress to tea. The girl greeted the young lady and invited her to the table. The emperor's fourth concubine added that the ladies were already tired of waiting for their empress, because the tea party had already begun. It would be a great disappointment if Lady Lars did not come to this lunch today. The main character looks closely at Eliza Annette and sees through her deceitful dual nature. Lady Lars knows very well what abominations this nasty lady is capable of. She was able to see this clearly while in the imperial prison. Lady Lars immediately remembered how once in her past life, Eliza Annette came to her prison cell and brought a raw potato to the hungry prisoner. But the emperor's concubine immediately threw the vegetable on the stone floor and trampled it with her foot to mock the unfortunate girl. The main character also remembered that a mysterious noble lady came to her in prison, sympathized with her, and looked after her, bandaging her wounds. She was a compassionate girl who was very worried about Lady Lars and constantly tried to support her in every possible way. But for some reason, among these stupid and mannered ladies, this real aristocrat is not there now. Perhaps she, too, avoids the company of these pompous socialites. Eliza Annette asked the main character how she had settled into the imperial castle and if everything was okay with her. The emperor's fourth concubine said that all the ladies present were very worried about their empress. The silly ladies listened to their leader and laughed sarcastically at the main character. They think that Lady Lars is an insignificant plebeian who is just lucky to get the title of empress. This is what envy looks like. The ladies of the court began to openly laugh at Lady Lars and bombard her with stupid questions about the personal servant she had brought with her, the case of the head maid, and Nicole's younger sister who should have been in her place. These stupid girls continue to mock and show their superiority in everything to the main character. But they do not understand that it was not Lady Lars who was locked in the same room with them, but they were in her sights. But everything has its time. The young empress continues to drink her aromatic tea calmly and with dignity. She listens attentively to the words of each of her husband's concubines, which add to the account of revenge that Lady Lars will one day pay them back with interest. The main character has already gone through something similar during her previous incarnation, so she has nothing more to lose and nothing to fear in this life. Eliza Annette turned to the young lady and said that there were rumors that the chef of the imperial palace decided to show his skills and prepared a special dish for the empress. These words interested the main character. But there is a catch. The concubine in the blue dress asked Lady Lars directly about her dark hair and royal family. The socialite said that everyone here believed the main character to be the queen's illegitimate child. She wanted to know if it was true. The main character listened attentively to the question of the emperor's stupid mistress and was very surprised that such rude words were so simply said to her. Eliza Annette hastened to ease the tense situation and said that everyone here was one of their own. so the young lady should not pay attention to the nonsense that the girls sitting at this table sometimes said. The emperor's fourth concubine continued her thinly veiled mockery of Lady Lars. She said that she was very worried about the young mistress because the emperor had beautiful silver hair, while his wife had a black head of hair. Perhaps the empress felt uncomfortable with the effect of dirty hair on her head. The other social ladies also found this stupid joke appropriate and funny, so they supported their leader and laughed. Meanwhile, the main character continues to calmly enjoy her tea and listens attentively to all the girls present in the room. Lady Lars remembered her younger sister Nicole for a moment and thought that this gentle girl would not have lasted here for even a few months. However, that is what happened. But in a past life, Lady Lars put her cup of tea on the table and decided to fight back against these silly ladies who think they can do anything. The main character smiled meaningfully and said that if she had been an illegitimate child in her family, she would have been treated differently and would not have received the love that she had been surrounded with since childhood. After this, Lady Lars asked Eliza Annette whether her child would be legitimate if she became pregnant by the emperor during their meetings, which would soon cease altogether. The monarch's beloved wife would take care of this. The heroine continued her attack. She said that Eliza Annette's illegitimate child could inherit her hair color. Then everyone would doubt that this bastard was born thanks to the monarch. Maybe his mother, who had always been distinguished by low social responsibility, gave birth to a child from another man. This was a masterful blow to the pride of the emperor's fourth concubine. She could no longer restrain herself from attacking the young mistress for such a cruel insult. Eliza Annette's patience ran out, and she quickly jumped up from her chair and told Lady Lars to shut her mouth immediately and stop insulting her. The beautiful face of the emperor's fourth concubine changed beyond recognition from her mad anger. She looked like a wild cat, ready to pounce on her victim and tear her into small pieces. But Lady Lars is very pleased with herself and her masterful answer, which hit the mark and made the main character's opponent lose her peace of mind and lose her temper. At this point, the main character decided to end the moral flogging of the emperor's fourth concubine and her friends. Lady Lars left the table and politely thanked the ladies of the world for the pleasant tea party. The young empress said goodbye to her husband's mistresses and expressed hope that this joint lunch would soon be repeated. Eliza Annette is still angry with Lady Lars, but she can do nothing about the situation and remains silent, searching for suitable words that for some reason do not come to her mind. Finally, the main character decided to deliver the finishing psychological blow to her opponent. She said that she would be having dinner with her husband tonight and was looking forward to this meeting. Just before leaving, the young lady added that she would very much like to know what color the hair of the emperor's child with his fourth concubine would be, if, of course, he were ever born. These words finally finished off Eliza Annette and forever made her an implacable enemy of the main character. When Lady Lars left the tea room, the concubine in the blue dress turned to Eliza Annette to see how she was feeling after the stress she had experienced. The emperor's fourth concubine is in a complete rage after meeting the main character. She hated her with all her black and envious soul. The girl remembered the smiling face of the young empress, and she shuddered. She did not understand how this pathetic plebeian dared to speak in such a rude tone to the beloved concubine of the great monarch. Eliza Annette told her friends that she knew all about the young empress's first wedding night, which she spent alone. It happened because the emperor was with his fourth concubine at the time. Let everyone know about it, and let Lady Lars know about it. The enraged mistress of the monarch also added that she had dined with her master hundreds of times, unlike this crazy imposter who imagines herself to be the real empress. At the same time, Eliza Annette thought that her meetings with the emperor had indeed become less frequent. Perhaps the monarch's marriage to Lady Lars was to blame. Zephon Barb Verbena has grown cold towards his fourth concubine and increasingly prefers to spend his nights in complete solitude. Eliza Annette looks after her departed mistress and says that she cannot believe everything that is happening now. According to the emperor's mistress, such an insignificant plebeian cannot be an empress, and it is necessary to urgently achieve her expulsion from the imperial palace. The girl introduced her master and his wife together and said that the emperor could not have any romantic feelings for this low and impudent simpleton. Eliza Annette will do everything to ensure that Lady Lars loses this battle for the emperor's heart and the title of empress. The monarch's fourth concubine calmed down a little and came to her senses in a few minutes. She went out into the corridor and noticed the servants painting one of the doors. This gave the girl an interesting idea that would help her take revenge on her offender. Eliza Annette thought about the fact that her nasty opponent would be having dinner with the Emperor today, so she needed help with the decoration for such an important event. Lady Lars would receive a gift today from a socialite who knew what beauty was. Meanwhile, the main character is getting ready for dinner with her husband. She is trying on her new black evening dress. The young Empress said she liked the new evening dress very much. Shin Fennyworth would do the girl's hair, and the head maid could be free immediately. Lady Lars suddenly realized that she had not seen her husband since their wedding. Several days had passed, and it was time for a joint meal. Custom demanded it. Husband and wife should have dinner together regularly so that their marriage becomes stronger over time and they can discuss family issues. The main character understands perfectly well that the Emperor married her only for convenience, so that he would have a hostage from the kingdom of Berry. But in order to prevent her death, Lady Lars must be very valuable to the great monarch. Therefore, the girl must offer him something in exchange for respect and protection. The main character thought that she had enough important and valuable information that she could share with her husband, and dinner with him was the perfect occasion to do so. Suddenly, a maid entered Lady Lars's chambers and said that she had a message for her mistress from the Emperor, who was waiting for her in the garden. The main character carefully read the note from her husband and thought that it was all very strange. Perhaps there was some trick hidden here that could harm the young Empress. Lady Lars is not afraid of difficulties after what she had to endure in her past life. Besides, she has a lot of free time now. Therefore, she will gladly meet her husband in the imperial garden. The main character thought that this meeting could be very interesting and would bring many surprises. After that, the girl finally decided that today should be a fun day. Lady Lars lit a small magical fire in her palm and thought that now no one would ever be able to hurt her. Not even the mighty Emperor. A few minutes later, the main character and her personal servant left the palace for the luxurious imperial garden, but there was no one there. This greatly surprised the young lady. The young Empress looked around carefully and again did not see the Emperor who had appointed her a personal audience here. Perhaps the proud monarch was inflating his value by making his wife wait for him longer. Suddenly, something unexpected happened. From the second-floor window of the building where the main character is standing, someone poured a bucket of white paint on the girl. A very insidious act by Eliza Annette, who decided to take revenge on Lady Lars in such a low way. The young Empress's personal servant did not lose his presence of mind in such an unexpected situation. He looks closely at his mistress and is already wondering whether she has suffered and whether it will be possible to save her luxurious black evening dress, which is completely covered in white paint. From the second floor, Eliza Annette, who poured white paint on the girl, looks at the main character. She sarcastically asked Lady Lars what happened to her black hair and luxurious dress. The main character noticed the Emperor's fourth concubine, who was on the second floor. The girl immediately realized that all this was set up by the Emperor's insidious mistress. Eliza Annette continues to mock her competitor. She laughed and said that the main character looks good in white. Maybe it even looks better on her. The young Empress looks askance at the foolish concubine and restrains her anger with all her might. She must endure this test with dignity in order to realize all her plans. The Emperor's fourth concubine enjoyed the spectacle of her humiliated and insulted competitor to her heart's content and went to her chambers. The main character withstood this blow of fate with dignity. She didn't even cry. Only white paint filled the girl's eyes, which she constantly tries to clear from the white coating. It turned out that the Emperor was secretly watching this whole situation, but he wanted to remain unnoticed. Zephon Barb Verbena assessed the actions and words of both girls and made his own conclusions. Now the monarch looks closely at his wife and wants to know what she will do next. This will help the Emperor get to know Lady Lars better. The young Empress is very dignified in this situation. The girl's personal servant took out his handkerchief to help her clean off the white paint that had stained her face, hair, and luxurious dress. Lady Lars is absolutely calm now. She managed to contain her emotions. The girl asked Shin Fennyworth to prepare another dress for her to change into. The valet bowed respectfully to his mistress and said that everything would be done precisely and without delay. The main character praised her personal servant and thanked him for his good service. After this, Lady Lars touched her black hair and realized that it was also heavily stained with white paint. The girl asked her personal valet to prepare a hot bath for her. The young lady added that she had to hurry to wash off all the paint before it dried and soaked into her hair. Otherwise, she would have to cut it off mercilessly, and the girl didn't want to do that at all. The evening has come, and it is time for dinner with the Emperor. The young monarch is already sitting at the dining table, which is bursting with a large number of different dishes on it. The husband is waiting for his wife with interest and impatience. Zephon Barbu Verbena is very interested in whether his wife was able to wash off the white paint and how she looks now after the incident that occurred in the imperial garden this afternoon. The young monarch looked at the clock standing not far from him and thought that the Empress was already more than a quarter of an hour late. She was very late. Perhaps some other misfortune or accident had befallen her. For a moment, the emperor thought that his wife would not be present at the family dinner after what had happened to her today. But it would be very stupid for the girl to be upset over such a trifle. The main character's husband wants to get to know her better. For some reason, the emperor thinks that this girl is different from others and has some special power that evokes, if not admiration, then certainly respect. The emperor thought for a moment and imagined that his wife might have locked herself in her room and was lying on her bed, sobbing, covered in white paint. If that was the case, the empress would not come to dinner with her husband. Zephon Barb Verbena had already given up hope that he would be able to wait for his wife. He told his personal servant that he wanted to go to his room to rest. The valet replied that he would immediately prepare everything. Suddenly, the emperor heard the voice of his wife, who apologized for being late and for making her husband wait for her too long that evening. The young monarch looked at the empress and was very surprised by her new appearance. The emperor did not expect his wife to find such an original solution to today's problem with white paint. Now he understood why the girl was so late and late for the family dinner. Lady Lars appeared before her husband in a completely new look. From a burning brunette, she turned into a charming blonde, having dyed her hair white. It should be told what happened to the main character's younger sister during her previous incarnation, after Eliza Annette poured white paint on her in the imperial garden. The girl returned to her room and began to panic. She told her personal maid that she no longer wanted to be the empress and longed to return home immediately. The maid listened attentively to her mistress and said that she urgently needed to calm down. But the girl replied that it was very difficult for her to come to her senses after what had happened in the imperial garden today. Lady Nicole continues to be outraged by everything that is happening to her. She said that she will no longer tolerate the terrible treatment of the emperor's concubines and their maids. The young mistress's maid said that she would immediately prepare a new dress for her. But Lady Nicole replied that she had better make preparations for her return to the kingdom of Berry. The maid said that this was impossible. The main character's younger sister said that all this was very unfair. She was not used to such treatment and wanted to return to her mom and dad as soon as possible. Let Lady Nicole's older sister take her place. The unhappy and persecuted girl decided to immediately write a letter to her parents so that they would know the whole truth about how the local inhabitants were treating her. The selfish princess writes a letter to the Berry Kingdom and talks about how her entire people will go to war against the Chariot Empire when they learn how Lady Nicole is being treated there. But that was the case during the main character's previous incarnation. That's how Lady Nicole behaved in a difficult situation. Lady Lars behaved completely differently in the same situation. She managed to turn her tactical defeat into a strategic victory. The emperor greeted Lady Lars and invited her to share his evening meal. After this, the young monarch sat down in his place and began to eat quietly. All the servants who are now in the dining room cannot stop marveling at the main character who appears before them in a new image. The young empress stands near the sumptuously set dining table and looks attentively at her husband. The girl is preparing to take her place at the table to dine with the emperor. But first, the main character wants to clarify one question that interests her now. For a moment, Lady Lars thought that the emperor simply did not recognize her in her new appearance, so he eats calmly. But all these thoughts turned out to be nonsense. Of course, the young monarch recognized his wife in a new guise. It's just that the emperor knows how to restrain and hide his emotions. That's why he was known as a cold and callous person. The main character thought about it and took her place at the dinner table. Today, Lady Lars appeared before her husband in her true form because her hair was always yellow. The girl washed the dye out of her hair today and decided not to dye it black anymore. The eldest princess of the Berry State always dyed her hair black for her own safety, because she had gained great magical powers. The girl always wanted to hide this from ill-wishers and potential enemies who could attempt on her life or harm her. Lady Lars's relatives convinced her to dye her hair dark so that her enemies would not find out that she had powerful magical powers and could not take them away from her. But all these camouflage tricks did not save the unfortunate princess from betrayal by her family and death by guillotine knife in the central square of her native capital. Now, Lady Lars's true appearance fully corresponds to her inner state. The main character has once again found herself as she really is. The young Empress looked closely at her husband, who calmly continued to eat his dinner, pretending that he was not surprised by his wife's new appearance. The main character thought that in her homeland, golden hair is a symbol of royal power and great magical power. This has been the case since ancient times. The girl also thought about her husband's silver hair, which has also been a symbol of great magical power since ancient times. Lady Lars remembered once again that her parents had not pushed her to change her hair color for her own safety. They had simply wanted to ruin their eldest daughter's reputation because they did not love her. Now the main character has regained her true essence and will not let anyone hurt her anymore. Let her golden hair become a symbol of strength and freedom from now on. Lady Lars came out of her thoughtful state and turned her attention to the Emperor, who was currently looking at her intently. The main character feels like the young monarch is reading her thoughts and fully understands what she is thinking about. Zefon Barb Verbena has always been famous for his insightful mind. The young Empress asked her husband if he had anything to say to her now. This tense and awkward pause needed to be ended urgently and the situation diffused. But the young monarch decided to pretend that he was not at all surprised by his wife's new appearance and drank a glass of wine instead of asking the Empress about anything. After this, the ruler ordered his servant to pour him another glass of wine. The valet was very surprised by this request because the Emperor had never drunk so much wine before. The servant pours a liquor into his master's glass and thinks that the Emperor has never behaved like this before. The young monarch always eats a hearty meal before drinking a glass of wine, but now everything is different. The wine he had drunk had gone to the Emperor's head a little, and he felt more relaxed. Zefon Barb Verbena decided to loosen his tie a little, which had become a nuisance and was pressing on his neck. The main character looks intently at her husband and again plunges into sad memories of her past incarnation. Lady Lars strained her memory and recalled in detail that fateful day when he came to her in her prison cell to propose to her to become his concubine. But then it all ended with the monarch, who has the gift of healing, curing the wounded eyes of the unfortunate princess so that she could go to her homeland and see for herself that she was considered an enemy there and hated by absolutely everyone. In this reality, the Emperor is the main character's husband, with whom she is now having dinner and trying to get to know better in order to establish good contact. The noble gentleman placed a glass of wine on the table and casually asked his Empress whether she had dyed her hair or if it had seemed that way to him. The main character listened attentively to her master's question and answered him that this was her natural hair color. Today, Lady Lars decided to change her image and return to her true appearance. After these words, the Emperor looked closely at his interlocutor and was truly surprised. He did not expect such a turn of events. Therefore, he tries to figure out how this will affect his future plans regarding the Empress. The main character hurried to explain to her husband why she always dyed her hair dark. The girl said that these were the rules in her family that should not be broken. Lady Lars thought for a moment and decided not to tell her husband the whole truth. She only wanted to lift the veil of this secret. The girl came up with a story about her younger sister's hair not being golden enough, so the main character had to dye her hair black to help Lady Nicole. The insightful monarch listened attentively to his wife's story and asked her about the hair color of her younger brother, Prince Eric. After all, he too should have golden hair. The girl listened to her husband and said that her brother naturally had the same hair color as her, but his magical abilities turned out to be very weak compared to those of Lady Lars. The Emperor continued his dinner and asked his wife why she spoke so of her younger brother's magical abilities. Were they really so weak that they were nothing at all? Lady Lars smiled mysteriously and said that Prince Eric was the heir to the royal throne, so he could not look weak in front of his older sister. Otherwise, it would ruin his excellent reputation among the people of the country. But for the young monarch, all this sounds very unconvincing. He cannot understand why a weaker candidate is wanted to be made heir to the throne if there is a stronger candidate. The main character listened to her husband and thought that in her past life, only she was always eliminated. But now it will be different. After that, the girl decided to change the subject a little and said that she was very pleased that the powerful emperor showed genuine interest in her family. The young monarch listens attentively to his wife and looks closely at her and her manners. He understands that the girl is trying to hide something from him and does not tell him some things. Lady Lars smiled and said that she really enjoyed sitting like this with the mighty emperor during dinner and conversing like members of one family. The main character thought for a moment and told her husband that the golden color of her hair would better suit the silver hair of the young monarch, who possessed great magical powers. The emperor listened to his wife and decided to drink some more wine. Something was bothering Zephon Barb Verbena. He was drinking too much alcohol today, much more than usual. The young monarch, under the influence of the intoxicating drink, decided to be frank with his wife and said that she was of no particular value in this palace as Empress. Lady Lars replied that the Emperor was mistaken about her. The young lady's words seemed very insolent and arrogant to the Lord. He could not understand what value Lady Lars could represent for him. She was here only to be a hostage and for nothing else. But the main character does not lose her presence of mind. She confidently looks into the eyes of her powerful husband and is fully prepared to repel any of his attacks. The young monarch, under the influence of the wine he had drunk, began to lose his self-control. He said that he had never recognized his wife as the true Empress. He had married Lady Lars only for political reasons. The cruel monarch added that many women had already been in the heroine's place, who were immediately destroyed when they were no longer needed. Therefore, Lady Lars could expect the same unenviable fate in the future. The main character listens attentively to her master and looks him intently in the eyes. The girl is perfectly aware of what is really happening now and very soberly assesses the current situation. But she is not going to become another victim of this cruel and cynical monarch. Lady Lars is a master of diplomacy, so she did not show that she was bothered by the Emperor's words. The girl immediately pulled herself together and smiled sweetly at her husband. After this, the main character drank some wine and said that if she died, the powerful ruler of the empire would never know the very important information that Lady Lars possessed and which could change the course of world history. These words interested the young monarch. But it seems to him that the new Empress is simply playing with him and bluffing in order to stay alive. The main character listened to her interlocutor and smiled mysteriously again. She does not want to reveal all her cards at once, but the girl will have to prove that she has these trump cards. Lady Lars thought for a few seconds and uttered the mysterious phrase "white meridian." She knows that these words have great meaning for the young emperor. The young monarch and his servants, who stood next to their master, froze in amazement when they heard from the new empress about the white meridian. The main character stares into her master's eyes. She noticed the emperor's surprise and said that she knew why he reacted that way when she mentioned the white meridian. Now, it is very important for the young monarch to know what information his wife has, because the fate of the entire Sharialt Empire and all international relations will depend on it. Lady Lars is well prepared for this conversation with the Emperor, who plans to get rid of her in the future. The national trading vessel called the White Meridian is of great importance to the Sharialt Empire and all international trade. This magnificent ship has a huge capacity and excellent speed characteristics. It departs from the main port of the empire and goes around all the ports of the colonies, as well as the trading partners of the state of Sharialt, collecting huge resources. After that, the White Meridian returns back and delivers important resources to its country. In about a month, the ship must return to its home port with very important and precious goods. But the kingdom allied with the Berry State, which is called Capricol, wants to seize the ship White Meridian, and only Lady Lars knows when and how this will happen. The treacherous pirates want to seize the precious goods on which the economy of the Sharialt Empire depends entirely. This will not only bring the country huge losses, but also weaken the state of Zephon Barb Verbena, changing the balance of political forces throughout the world. The Berry Kingdom secretly supports its ally in every possible way in the fight against the Sharialt Empire, and will play a major role in organizing the capture of the White Meridian. The main character once accidentally overheard a conversation between her father and a representative of the Kingdom of Capricol. The girl knows all the details of the plan of the insidious conspirators who want to take possession of the untold riches that will be on the imperial trading ship. When Lady Lars learned of her father's plot against the Sharialt Empire, she tried to dissuade him from participating in this foolish adventure. But the king of the Berry State was adamant. He did not listen to the advice of his wise daughter. The main character's father said that the kingdom of Capricole is his longtime ally. Therefore, they are obliged to help each other in difficult times. Lady Lars was very surprised by the foolish king's reckless response, which jeopardizes the friendship with the Sharialt Empire. This is a very dangerous situation for the Berry Kingdom. Prince Eric intervened in the conversation, saying that friendship with the Great Empire was only a political game and a pretense. It was aimed at lulling the emperor's vigilance. The main character listened to her younger brother and realized that the future well-being of the Berry State and the royal family was hanging by a thread. All these stupid political games would lead to a terrible result. The king tried to calm his eldest daughter. He said that the girl should not worry because she had once thought up this plan, but had completely forgotten about it. Lady Lars replied that when she thought up this plan, she had other goals in mind. The father of the first princess added that no one in the Sharialt Empire would know about the secret plan to seize the merchant ship. The king is always proud of the intelligence of his eldest daughter, who knows how to make successful projects that are aimed at the well-being of her home country. The king thought for a moment and said that the kingdom of Capricorn was acting in an ethically wrong manner, but it was necessary to do so in order to weaken the empire of Sharialt and to increase the prestige of both minor kingdoms. The main character's father also said that this plan must be kept in the strictest confidence because Lady Nicole, who is now in the imperial palace as the wife of Zephon Barba Verbena, may suffer. The king looked his eldest daughter in the eye and said that from now on he would always rely on Lady Lars's sharp and deep intellect because she had come up with this wonderful plan to capture the merchant ship. After her father's pleasant praise, the main character forgot all her worries and fears. The girl was glad that her abilities were appreciated, and now she became the king's advisor. Now, in her new incarnation, Lady Lars realizes that she was a very stupid girl who was later blamed for the political failures of her relatives. A month later, a merchant ship called the White Meridian was captured by pirates from the kingdom of Capricorn. The emperor never found out who the real culprit was in this case and stole his wealth to be on the ship. But this event caused a new war. Zephon Barb Verbena was forced to attack the kingdom of Castle, where his ship was based, when it was boarded by bandits. This was how he compensated for the damage done to the Sharialt Empire. In the end, the Berry Kingdom was the big winner. The king and crown prince of this country managed to hide the secret of the capture of the White Meridian treasures and received huge profits for it. The main character remembers the whole story of the White Meridian treasure theft thanks to her previous incarnation. Now the girl wants to use her knowledge to be useful to her husband. The emperor asked Lady Lars what she wanted to tell him about this trading ship, which was supposed to return home in a month. The young empress said that she had verified information about an impending attack on a ship called the White Meridian. It would happen in 4 weeks. The girl knew the exact date and could tell it to her master. The ruler of the empire listened attentively to his interlocutor. He looks closely at his wife and tries to understand whether the girl is telling him the truth. The main character added that she also has other very important information that will be very beneficial to the Sharialt Empire. Lady Lars smiled at her husband and asked him what he thought about what he had heard and whether he would like to verify the information he had received. The emperor thought about his wife's words and asked what else she knew, besides what was said above. But the main character is not going to reveal all her cards right away. The lady knows all the events that will happen in the next 10 years. Shin Fenneworth told the girl about this when he visited her in prison. Therefore, Lady Lars has something to offer the ruler of the empire in exchange for her life and safety. Zephon Barb Verbena listened attentively to his interlocutor, and he really did not like the fact that his wife dared to hide something from him. But the astute emperor ordered his personal assistant to carefully check the information that the young lady provided. Perhaps it has some meaning. Time will tell. After this, the main character's husband added that if her information was confirmed and the attack on the White Meridian ship was prevented, then the emperor would recognize Lady Lars's value and treat her with greater respect. Zephon Barb Verbena thought for a moment and said that the ship White Meridian is an important link in the delivery of valuable resources to the Sharialt Empire. This time, the ship is loaded with goods that are of critical importance to the state. The ruler of the empire cannot allow all these resources to fall into the hands of his enemies or bandits. If anyone dares to attack the White Meridian ship, it will immediately become food for fish and other sea creatures. The main character listens attentively to her husband, and she really likes what she is hearing now. Finally, the girl's plan has started to work. The emperor looked closely at the young lady and said that if the girl was caught in a lie, she would become food for the sea creatures. Lady Lars has nothing to fear in the current situation, so she calmly drinks white wine from her glass and does not worry about anything. Let's leave the royal newlyweds for a while and head to the chambers of the emperor's 4th concubine, Eliza Annette. She is in a bad mood and is breaking dishes from the rage that has taken hold of her. The fact is that the maid reported to the monarch's mistress that his wife came to dinner with the emperor looking beautiful and in a new image with golden hair. This news enraged Eliza Annette. The spy also reported to her mistress that the young empress and her husband had entered into an important agreement concerning a ship called the White Meridian. The monarch's concubine continues to yell at her maid because of the bad news she brought. The maid said that she did not know all the details of the contract between the spouses, but she thought it was very important for both masters. Eliza Annette is now more interested in the fact that the young lady's hair turned out to be fake. So all the talk about her being the bastard of the Queen of the Berry State turned out to be fiction. Meanwhile, the main character's dinner with the Emperor came to an end. The girl went to her chambers and decided to read an interesting book for a while. Lady Lars knows that the next dinner with her husband will take place in a month. Such is the local tradition. In the meantime, the girl has time to think things over. Suddenly, a maid knocked on the door and said that a message had been delivered to the young mistress. The main character said that she would accept the letter. The maid said that the letter looked a little unusual and showed it to the young mistress. Lady Lars and her faithful servant were surprised when they saw this strange letter. The maid carefully put the message on the table, which was torn into many small pieces. The main character does not understand what is happening here. Maybe the maid decided to joke about her. The frightened maid immediately hurried to calm her mistress and said that she had nothing to do with the damage to the letter. It arrived in exactly that form. The main character and Shin Fennyworth look closely at the strange letter torn to shreds and try to figure out how to read it. To do this, they will have to carefully put together all the small pieces of the torn letter. This may take some time. It is good that Lady Lars's personal servant loves to solve various puzzles. You could say that this is his hobby. The young Empress's loyal assistant was able to assemble a coherent message from the small pieces of the letter. Apparently, this is a letter from the King of the Berry State, which is addressed to the main character. Shin Fennyworth read the assembled letter aloud. Lady Lars's father greets her and also inquires about the current situation in the Sharialt Empire and whether there is any important news that will affect the Berry Kingdom. The young Empress heard the contents of the message from her father and ordered her personal assistant to immediately throw the letter in the trash. Shin Fennyworth collected the small pieces of paper covered in tiny handwriting and threw them into the trash can, much to the delight of his mistress. The main character guesses who tore up the letter that was addressed to her. She knows this based on the experience of her previous incarnation. Lady Nicole also complained that someone was destroying her mail. For all these stupid and insignificant tricks, the young Empress must thank the Emperor's fourth concubine and her friends, who will never miss an opportunity to harm the main character. Lady Lars told her assistant that she needed to arrange a meeting with Eliza Annette. The young Empress's loyal servant said that the Emperor's concubine would soon be throwing a Christmas party, so it would be possible to arrange a date with her there. Shin Fennyworth added that there would be other mistresses of the powerful ruler of the empire at this large-scale event. After that, the efficient servant showed the lady an invitation to the Christmas party. The main character took the invitation in her hands and examined it carefully. The girl did not notice anything special. It was just an ordinary envelope sealed with wax. Lady Lars smiled meaningfully and told her personal assistant that he could tell Princess Elise Annette that the lady would be pleased to attend the Christmas party she was throwing next weekend. Shin Fennyworth bowed respectfully to the young Empress and said that he would carry out his mistress's order exactly as she said. The main character smiled meaningfully again and thought that the Emperor's fourth concubine would not stop and would not make peace with her. Most likely, Eliza Annette had come up with another insidious plan aimed at harming her rival. And now Lady Lars wanted to go for a walk. A few minutes later, the young Empress went to the Imperial greenhouse, which is famous for its beauty throughout the Sharialt Empire. The main character really likes to walk here and enjoy the wonderful aroma of beautiful flowers. It calms the girl down and lifts her spirits. Suddenly, the young Empress noticed that she was not alone in the greenhouse. Someone else was walking around here. This was rather strange because visitors rarely came here lately. Lady Lars looked more closely and realized that not far from her, another concubine of the Emperor, whom she had not seen during her recent tea party with other social ladies, was enjoying the beautiful flowers. The main character came closer to get a better look at the girl, who also preferred the company of beautiful flowers to the company of arrogant and proud aristocrats. The face of this lady seemed familiar to the Empress. The stranger came out of her thoughtful state when she heard the approaching steps of the main character. The girl turned her attention to Lady Lars and was surprised by her presence in the greenhouse. The young Empress approached the mysterious stranger. She did not say a word and looked the girl intently in the eyes to study her. The monarch's concubine turned to Lady Lars because she recognized her immediately. The girl greeted the young lady politely and said that she was very glad to see her here. The stranger also admired the Empress's luxurious golden hair. The main character also greeted the girl and said that she had recently changed her appearance to one that better suited her inner state. The mysterious stranger turned out to be a very polite and well-mannered lady. The girl said that she had made a mistake by being in the greenhouse when the Empress was resting there. She was going to leave the room immediately so as not to disturb her mistress. The girl's voice also seemed very familiar to the young lady. She asked the stranger what her name was. The girl apologized for not introducing herself to the Empress right away and said that her name was Sasha Lebedeva. The main character looks at the girl carefully. She remembered, based on the experience of the previous incarnation, that Sasha Lebedeva is the third concubine of the Emperor, who is mocked by all the other mistresses of the monarch and does not accept her into their company. But perhaps this strange girl wants to deceive the Empress and gain her trust, so that she can later weave insidious intrigues with impunity. In the imperial palace, one must be very careful, because there can be no friends here. Lady Lars decided to take a closer look at Sasha Lebedeva first, so as not to be deceived by her. Maybe this girl would turn out to be a good person, and it would be possible to communicate with her normally. The main character asked the Emperor's third concubine why she was now walking in the greenhouse all alone. The girl replied that she was uncomfortable with other socialite ladies. Sasha Lebedeva became the Emperor's mistress only for political reasons, so she cannot fit into the local society of aristocrats who prefer to weave intrigues, as well as increase their power and wealth. Lady Lars listened carefully to her interlocutor, and she liked what she had just heard. But she wanted to get to know this girl better, so she offered to have tea with her. Sasha Lebedeva immediately agreed to share a meal with the young Empress and said that it would be a great honor for her. In addition, the girl said that she really loves the sweets prepared by the local chef. They are real masterpieces of culinary art. A few minutes later, the efficient Shin Fennyworth set the table for tea right in the beautiful greenhouse in the middle of magnificent flower beds. The Emperor's young concubine drank some of the aromatic tea and said that she had never in her life tasted such a wonderful drink with such a rich and pleasant taste. The girl added that such tea would go well with sweets made according to local recipes. These culinary masterpieces are worthy of being glorified for centuries by great poets. Sasha Lebedeva continues to praise the sweets served in the imperial castle. Meanwhile, the main character listens attentively to her interlocutor and understands that, in essence, before her now stands an innocent child who has not yet been corrupted by aristocratic society. As if to confirm the Empress's thoughts, her interlocutor began enthusiastically praising a special delicacy that the local chef prepares very well. Lady Lars listened attentively to the girl and answered that, unfortunately, she had not yet had the opportunity to try all the local sweets. The young Empress had too many different concerns. The golden-haired lady thought for a few seconds that she was still entering the broad aristocratic society of the Sharialt Empire, so she did not know many little things that could be very useful to her in the future. Sasha Lebedeva began to get a little worried and asked the young lady for forgiveness for being too smart and talking while sitting at the dinner table. Lady Lars said that there was nothing to worry about and that the girl should not worry. The main character was silent for a while and asked her interlocutor to tell more information about the Emperor's other concubines. These words surprised Sasha Lebedeva very much. The girl happily agreed to help her mistress. She said that all the concubines who live in the imperial palace are actually just that in name and do not enter into romantic relationships with the ruler. Only Princess Eliza Annette has this opportunity. All other girls are hostages that the monarch keeps to himself in order to exert influence over the countries that have submitted to his rule. The Emperor shows no interest in these ladies, even if they try to take the place of the Empress. There have been several cases where unfortunate girls have lost their lives because they tried to seduce the young ruler with their charms and beauty. The Emperor is only interested in a woman who has true value. Before Lady Lars arrived at the imperial castle, the closest thing to an empress was Princess Eliza Annette. But something didn't go according to her plan. Sasha Lebedeva drank some tea and ate a small cake. After that, the girl continued her story. She noted that none of the 6 concubines of the ruler could actually become empress, because the young monarch did not want it. The situation developed in such a way that the 6th concubine became the main lady of the court, who had great power and controlled the other ladies who were close to the emperor. In addition, there are rumors that the 6th concubine always gets rid of her competitors who have aroused the monarch's interest in a variety of ways. Some girls paid with their health and lives for daring to challenge the proud and powerful aristocrat who believes that the young emperor belongs only to her. The main character listens attentively to the words of her interlocutor and remembers everything. This is very valuable information that will definitely be useful to the Empress in the near future. Lady Lars found it strange that the chief concubine had still notified her. Perhaps this woman was secretly studying the situation in order to strike at the most inopportune moment for the victim. The sixth concubine had not yet touched Eliza Annette either. This was the calm before the storm. The Empress asked her interlocutor what she could tell her about the fourth concubine, Princess Eliza Annette. Sasha Lebedeva replied that the fourth concubine is a very emotional person who stands out from the other girls close to the emperor. Princess Eliza Annette has always been distinguished by her jealousy and inflated self-esteem. She hates not only the interlocutor of the main character, but also all the other concubines who live in the imperial palace. Sasha Lebedeva smiled and said that the fourth concubine was the least jealous of the young emperor because of her plain appearance. There was no arguing with that fact, and the other concubines continued to fight among themselves for the attention of the ruler and the title of true empress. The young lady's interlocutor told her to be very careful now, because Eliza Annette was very hostile towards Lady Lars. The main character looked closely at the emperor's third concubine and asked the girl why she was helping Lady Lars then. The kind girl smiled and said that she could not go against her rightful empress. She was an insignificant concubine in this luxurious palace in which she was allowed to live. Thanks to the emperor for that. Sasha Lebedeva said that initially she should not have been in the imperial castle at all, because her country has always maintained neutrality in all wars. But it turned out differently. The young empress listened attentively to her interlocutor and told her that she was a very kind and intelligent girl, with whom one wanted to behave well and honestly. Lady Lars gently took the kind girl by the chin and looked her intently in the eyes. The young lady told Sasha Lebedeva that she did not intend to harm her and wanted to be friends with her. The main character told her interlocutor that she was grateful to her for the interesting story and useful information, which would be very useful to the Empress in the near future. Sasha Lebedeva listened attentively to the young lady and, just in case, asked her forgiveness once again if she had said or done something wrong. Lady Lars immediately remembered her stay in the prison dungeon during her previous incarnation. The main character guessed why the girl's voice seemed familiar to her. Sasha Lebedeva came to the princess in her cell, treated her wounds, and tried to morally support the unfortunate captive. She asked Lady Lars for forgiveness for the terrible behavior of the ladies of the court who mocked the prisoner. The concubine offered the main character wine, which has a pain-relieving effect. But the princess of the Berry State refused to drink this drink because she was afraid of poisoning. Sasha Lebedeva apologized to the unfortunate captive of the emperor and said that she understood all the feelings of the prisoner. Therefore, she will not come here anymore, so as not to irritate Lady Lars. After that, the concubine said that she wanted to pray for the main character. The girl began to pray for the prisoner, who was suffering great physical and mental suffering. During the prayer, the emperor's concubine was enveloped in a golden glow. This surprised Lady Lars. She had never seen anything like this before. Sasha Lebedeva continues to sincerely pray for the unfortunate captive and says that she is very sorry that everything turned out so badly. Meanwhile, the golden glow that began to emanate from the cruel monarch's concubine began to move towards the main character and gradually enveloped her body. Lady Lars felt the impact of the golden aura with her entire being, despite the fact that she was blinded. Apparently, the emperor's third concubine has magical powers that can heal illnesses and injuries of living beings. The girl prays fervently. She is completely immersed in this process. The main character felt that this strange lady who prayed for her could be trusted. After that, the princess decided to collect the remains of the wine from the floor of her cell, which has a pain-relieving effect and is not poisoned, as Lady Lars thought. The Empress remembered this important incident from her past life and realized that in front of her now stood the same girl who had prayed for her in the prison cell and eased her unbearable pain. The main character looked closely at the fragile girl who had not yet been spoiled by aristocratic society. Lady Lars was finally convinced that it was Sasha Lebedeva who took care of her when she was in prison, and all her relatives turned away from her. The young Empress cannot tell her interlocutor about this, but in the depths of her soul, she is very grateful to the kind girl for her care and treatment. Lady Lars remembered this forever. Sasha Lebedeva looks closely at the young lady and understands that something is happening to her now, because Lady Lars is thinking about something and is completely immersed in her thoughts. The main character smiled at her interlocutor again and thanked her for the wonderful tea party they had shared. Now the Empress had to leave, but she officially invited Sasha Lebedeva to another lunch. A few days later, the weekend arrived and Eliza Annette, as promised, threw the annual Christmas party, which was attended by the cream of the imperial aristocracy. The ladies of the world, as always, discussed the latest news and gossip of the Sharialt Empire. Today, the main topic of all gossip is the golden hair color of the young empress, which turned out to be natural, to the general amazement of all the ladies of the court. The girls discuss the main character's hair and the fact that she can now be considered one of the most powerful sorceresses in the empire, who possesses magical power equal to that of the emperor. The ladies of the court understand that the silver and gold hair color indicates extraordinary magical gifts. Therefore, they made the right conclusion about the expediency of the marriage of the emperor and Lady Lars. The gossips did not ignore Princess Eliza Annette, who organized today's event. The position of the fourth concubine of the emperor is becoming increasingly precarious after the appearance of a young lady from the kingdom of Berry in the palace. Princess Eliza Annette is in the ballroom, surrounded by the emperor's other concubines. The former favorite of the emperor is in a foul mood today. She is waiting for Lady Lars to appear so she can begin her dirty game. The young empress finally appeared at the party, accompanied by her personal valet. The girl created a sensation among the guests of the ball with her shining golden hair. Many guests cannot believe that this is the same provincial princess who recently arrived from the Berry Kingdom and became the new empress. The image of Lady Lars has changed so much. The local ladies' men immediately admired the unearthly beauty of the wife of the ruler of the empire and said that he had made the right choice and had acquired a real treasure as a wife. Eliza Annette stares at the young empress. The princess is burning with jealousy, envy, and hatred for Lady Lars. The former favorite of the ruler of the empire heard one of her friends admire the main character. The girl inadvertently said that she simply could not believe that the young empress hid her luxurious golden hair. These words upset the princess even more. Meanwhile, the main character noticed Eliza Annette among the guests of the ball, greeted her, and said that she was very glad to see her again. The princess also greeted the young empress and decided to show her wit by telling Lady Lars that she expected to see her again in the form of a black bat. The guests did not appreciate this stupid joke. Eliza Annette did not pay any attention to her failure and continued to attack the main character. She said that the young empress had worked hard on her appearance after drinking tea with worthy society ladies who had set an example for her. Lady Lars ironically thanked her interlocutor for the sophisticated compliment and said that she had hardly tried to be beautiful today. It just happens. The princess's face has changed beyond recognition again from an excess of negative emotions. Eliza Annette understands that all her attacks do not touch the young wife of the sovereign at all. Lady Lars made it clear to her interlocutor that the conversation with her was over and decided to leave to chat with the other guests of today's celebration. Eliza Annette's friends whisper among themselves and laugh maliciously. This means that the evil princess has something in mind and will soon bring her insidious plan to life. And so it happened. One of the princess's friends tripped the main character in passing, and the young empress tripped over this girl. But fortunately, nothing terrible happened. Shin Fennyworth managed to save his mistress from an awkward fall in the middle of the ballroom. Eliza Annette's insidious plan failed, and the young empress will not become a laughingstock. The main character has kept her presence of mind. She relies on her personal assistant and secretly remembers all the people who are now laughing at her, and thus supporting Eliza Annette. The payback for these stupid jokes will definitely come. Lady Lars smiled meaningfully and promised herself that she would not forget a single face of these pathetic jesters who trampled on her dignity as empress. Suddenly, a noble aristocrat accompanied by a young nobleman approached the main character and greeted her joyfully. The visit of the young empress is a great honor for her. Lady Lars replied to the noble lady that it was a great honor and joy for her to communicate with such a noble lady who had deigned to give her a few minutes of her time. While the main character exchanges pleasantries with the noble lady, Eliza Annette and her friend carefully observe the young empress and her actions. A few moments later, another pair of aristocrats approached Lady Lars to pay their respects to the young empress. The main character was well received in high society. Eliza Annette keeps a close eye on the young wife of the sovereign. She envies her success among the high nobility of the Empire of Chariot and says that all this is happening because of the beautiful golden hair of Lady Lars. The emperor's evil concubine sits in a chair and constantly thinks about how she can humiliate the young empress today, who has become the real star of the evening. Suddenly, the main character approached Eliza Annette and said that she wanted to have a little chat with her, to take her mind off the constant compliments that she had to listen to today. The emperor's fourth concubine listens attentively to the young empress and understands that she has come here for a reason. Lady Lars most likely has something in mind. Suddenly, one of Eliza Annette's friends screamed loudly from the unbearable pain she was experiencing. No one could understand what was happening and why the girl was screaming so loudly. This was the same girl who tripped the main character. The Emperor's fourth concubine is in a state of shock. She has guessed what the young Empress has just done and cannot believe that Lady Lars would do such a cruel thing. The young Empress immediately hurried to cover the screaming girl's mouth with her hand. She said that she shouldn't scream so loudly, so as not to scare away all the guests who came to this wonderful party. Meanwhile, Eliza Annette decided to figure out what had really happened. She saw that Lady Lars had pierced the foot of the girl who had pushed her a few minutes ago. Now everything became crystal clear to the concubine. The young Empress's revenge was not long in coming. Eliza Annette hastened to stand up for her friend, who was wounded by the young Empress. The fourth concubine of the sovereign rose from her chair and asked the main character why she allowed herself to do such terrible things. Lady Lars looked at Eliza Annette and her friends. She thought that she had to do everything in her power to re-educate these pathetic ladies who thought too much of themselves. After that, the main character responded. She said that the fourth concubine of the emperor could gather around herself as many dregs of human society as she wanted, but she would never be able to get the attention of the sovereign again. These words made Eliza Annette very angry. She is beside herself with rage and powerlessness to do anything in response to her competitor. The emperor's fourth concubine began to shout loudly at the female lead. She told the Empress to immediately shut her mouth and stop bullying her friends. Lady Lars calmly looks at her rival and understands that she managed to achieve her goal today. She was able to drive Eliza Annette crazy and disgrace her in public. But the proud concubine decided to take revenge on the main character and threw a champagne glass at her. The glass shattered into small pieces while still in the air, and the shards of glass wounded the young Empress's face, slightly scratching the girl's cheek. Eliza Annette's friends were very worried after the concubine's careless and emotional behavior. They said that the girl should calm down immediately, because she was not allowed to behave so boldly with the emperor's wife. Otherwise, there could be bad consequences. The main character stares at her husband's fourth concubine and wipes drops of blood from her wounded cheek. The cut is not deep, but it is quite painful and unpleasant. The girl holds herself with dignity and does not become hysterical. The young Empress calmly walked up to the banquet table and picked up a table knife. The main character will not wait long to give her offenders what they deserve. One of Eliza Annette's friends saw that the Empress had picked up a knife from the table and wanted to use it immediately, but not for gastronomic purposes. The girl got scared and advised the concubine to immediately run away from the banquet hall somewhere. The wounded girl also supported her friend and said that anything could be expected from the young Empress. Eliza Annette listened to her frightened friends and laughed loudly at their warnings. The concubine looked at the main character and said that she would not dare to use a knife against her in front of 100 people. But before the girl could finish these words, the young Empress had already done what she had planned. She quickly swung a sharp knife and cut the front of her rival's dress. It was now clear that Eliza Annette's yellow dress had suddenly acquired a deep neckline. In addition, the concubine now had to hold up the top of her dress so that her bust would not be exposed. Eliza Annette's friends observed the situation and realized that the young Empress has gained the upper hand over their mistress. The girls are in a state of shock. The emperor's fourth concubine fell to her knees, holding her slit dress so as not to expose herself in the presence of the guests who were closely watching the scandalous situation. The main character is triumphant. She smiled contemptuously and told her opponent that she should look at herself in the mirror and force herself to talk less, because it always leads to sad consequences. Eliza Annette looks at her rival with hatred and anger and understands that she has found herself in a very difficult and humiliating situation that will be difficult to correct. The young Empress said that the emperor would not protect her in this situation, but he would not protect Eliza Annette either. Lady Lars could stand up for herself, but the concubine could not. Therefore, she had lost this battle, and it was better for her to keep quiet. At that moment, the main character remembered how Eliza Annette had mocked her when she was in a prison cell during her previous incarnation. Now everything had changed. Lady Lars showed the presumptuous noblewoman who was the real boss here. The main character laughed joyfully and said that now it was the turn of the stupid concubine to taste all the fruits of humiliation and the bitterness of defeat. The young Empress loudly told all the guests of the party to take a close look at this pathetic girl who imagined herself to be the emperor's favorite. She had turned into a pathetic nobody who was worth nothing in this world. Eliza Annette is silent and in a state of shock. Among the guests of the ball, a whisper was heard that the young Empress was absolutely right now. A pathetic concubine should not act as if she had an exceptional position in the imperial palace. The main character carefully analyzes the current situation and notices every detail. The girl liked that everything was working out in her favor. She thought that she had experienced too much to be stopped by some insignificant concubine. When the passions had died down a bit, her friends helped Eliza Annette get to her feet and tidy herself up. The emperor's fourth concubine feels humiliated and insulted, but not defeated. The girl is still determined to fight back against the young empress and drive her out of the imperial palace. The main character understands all this perfectly well and is ready to engage in a fight with her rival at any time of the day or night. But now she enjoys her victory and indulges in joyful thoughts. The socialites who watched the conflict between Eliza Annette and Lady Lars changed their minds about the young empress. Now they think that the young wife of the emperor deserves the nickname Fearless Lioness. Not bad. The sixth concubine of the emperor, whose name is Kamila Kaczynski, now holds the same opinion. This girl is the head of all the concubines of the sovereign and has great power at court. Today, she watches the main character very closely. Meanwhile, the emperor is working for the good of his state in his office. He asked his personal assistant if his wife would take part in the celebration that the princess is organizing today. The servant of the sovereign answered in the affirmative. After that, Zephon Barb Verbena thought about how the young empress would behave in the company of his numerous concubines. It would be interesting to see. The emperor thought about it and remembered how beautiful his wife had been during the family dinner. Such a pleasant sight needed to be seen again, and as soon as possible. The main character's husband did not think anymore and soon went to the ball that the princess had arranged. The emperor looked around and realized that something had recently happened here. The guests of the party were behaving strangely and were discussing something emotionally. Zephon Barb Verbena noticed that Lady Eliza Annette was leaving the banquet hall in a hurry, wrapped in some strange cloak that did not match the color of her ball gown. All this is very interesting to the emperor. A few minutes later, the monarch decided to find out what had happened here during his absence. Perhaps the young empress was involved. The friends of the emperor's quadruple concubine noticed their master at the ball and hastened to tell him their version of the recent conflict between Eliza Annette and Lady Lars. But the emperor put these stupid gossips in their place and said that he had not given them permission to talk to him. The proud and insightful ruler of the empire tries to find a more suitable and knowledgeable interlocutor who would tell him the whole situation in the smallest details and without prejudice against the empress. The friends of the emperor's fourth concubine bowed respectfully to their master and apologized for trying to talk to him without permission. While the ruler of the empire was teaching the courtesies of his fourth concubine, his faithful servant found out what had recently happened here and what role the young empress played in all of this. The personal servant told the emperor that there had just been a conflict between Eliza Annette and Lady Lars, in which the young wife of the ruler had won. She had cut the dress of the fourth concubine with a knife, and she had to quickly leave for home. The young monarch heard the sound of a carriage driving away from the ballroom and realized that it was Lady Eliza Annette hastily returning to her chambers to avoid even greater shame and dishonor. The emperor listened attentively to the report of his personal assistant and immediately understood everything. He was a little surprised by the methods his young wife uses to put her offenders in their place. But the emperor liked that the empress did not allow herself to be offended today and managed to take revenge. Zephon Barb Verbena was obviously very interested in Lady Lars. He smiled mysteriously and thought that this girl was not only very beautiful, but also had a strong character. The young emperor decided to urgently find his wife and talk to her. He made his way through the crowd of guests to find the young empress. It took some time. The monarch suddenly felt his blood begin to run faster through his veins. He had not experienced such a feeling for a long time. Lady Lars interested the emperor with her crazy behavior and fortitude. The ruler of the empire knew many different women and observed them enough, but they all fell to their knees and gave in to the slightest difficulties of life. They remind the powerful ruler of some domestic animals that do not know how to survive in the wild. But Lady Lars is a woman with a completely different character, one that is distinguished by steadfastness and endurance. This is the kind of lady the emperor has been looking for all his life. This extraordinary aristocrat evokes in the young monarch some exciting feelings that he has never experienced before. Women have always been just toys for the emperor. But now everything is different. Zephon Barb Vervain walks through the banquet hall to meet her empress. All the guests pay their respects to their master and bow to him. The ruler of the empire looks ahead confidently and continues his way through the banquet hall. He thinks about how the young empress will react when she sees him among the guests of the feast. Finally, the emperor found his wife among the guests and approached her. Next to the girl stands her faithful assistant, Shinfenivores. The ruler of the empire looks at his wife and admires her beauty. Lady Lars is simply irresistible in her new evening dress today. The girl's golden hair is especially beautiful today, but the image of the golden-haired goddess is slightly spoiled by a small scratch on her cheek. The red stripe reminds the emperor that before him is not an eternal goddess, but a living girl of flesh and blood who has recently become his wife. The main character noticed her husband and was a little surprised because she did not expect to meet him today at this wonderful celebration. The emperor has always been distinguished by a closed character, so he does not like to attend social events. Lady Lars's husband continues to admire her beauty. He greeted his wife and said that she looked beautiful today, but that the scratch on her cheek spoiled everything. After this, the emperor asked what kind of scandal the empress had created here while he was absent and busy with important state affairs. The main character listened attentively to her master and smiled sweetly at him. She said that nothing terrible had happened. Everything was fine now. The most important thing was that all the aristocrats who came to the celebration supported Lady Lars and admired her courage. The emperor looked closely at his wife and asked what had happened to Eliza Annette's evening dress and what role the new empress had played in it. Lady Lars looks tenderly at her husband and understands that he likes her. Otherwise, the strict and quick-to-punish emperor would not even ask the girl all these questions. He immediately punished her exemplarily. The main character is glad that the emperor already knows about her conflict with Eliza Annette, which ended with the fourth concubine going home. The young emperor looks at his wife and cannot understand why she reacts to his words in such a way. Apparently, Lady Lars is proud of herself for having caused a scandalous story at this celebration. The Lord of the Empire severely reprimanded the heroine for daring to raise her hand against Eliza Annette. He said that this noblewoman is the daughter of a respected aristocrat who controls 70% of the trade with the kingdom of Ulain. Zephon Barb Verbena added that there had been a long and brutal war between the Sharialt Empire and the Ulain kingdom. But thanks to huge losses and diplomatic efforts, the powers managed to compromise and agree on joint trade. The emperor looked at his interlocutor intently and said that she would be severely punished if, due to her conflict with Lady Eliza Annette, trade relations with the kingdom of Ulain suffered. The main character listens attentively to her master and perfectly understands the seriousness of the situation she found herself in. Perhaps Lady Lars did not take into account some aspects of international politics when she took revenge on her concubine for her grievances. The young empress bowed her head sadly and asked her husband's forgiveness with all her heart for her lack of restraint and stupid behavior at today's celebration. The ruler of the empire watches his interlocutor attentively. He believes this beautiful girl, but something tells the young monarch that this is not all. Lady Lars will give him another surprise. The main character thought for a while and told her husband a very strange and unexpected thought. The girl said that the emperor no longer needed Eliza Annette at all, because he now had a faithful and loving wife. The tense and emotional conversation of the newlyweds was interrupted by an aristocrat who ran up to the main character and began to wipe the scratch on the girl's cheek with a handkerchief. She said that she had called a doctor. The proud ruler of the empire was very unhappy that someone dared to interrupt him and interfere in his conversation with his own wife. Zephon Barb Verbena pushed the doctor and he dropped his medical bag on the floor. Various medications, pills, bandages, and plasters fell from the suitcase onto the marble floor of the banquet hall. The emperor was very angry at the discourtesy of his subjects. He said that the impudent nobles would be severely punished for their plebeian behavior. The aristocrats who stand aside also look closely at their master and understand that the emperor's wrath can be very dangerous for anyone who falls into his hands at such an inopportune moment. After this, the main character's husband looked at her intently and said that she had not yet proven her worth. Therefore, the girl had no right to claim that she could replace Lady Eliza Annette with her person. A mysterious smile appeared on the young empress's face again, which puzzled the ruler of the empire. The emperor looks at his interlocutor attentively and cannot understand why she behaves so calmly. Is this princess from the kingdom of berries so confident in herself that the words of the ruler do not frighten her at all? Lady Lars looked her husband straight in the eye and said that he would soon have the opportunity to see for himself that she was a very useful girl. The young sovereign had never met such a self-confident lady, who seemed to be able to look into the future. It all looks very strange. After that, the main character did something even crazier than what she had done before. The girl carefully touched the scratch on her cheek with her finger. Then the young empress smeared her finger with a little of her blood and pointed her hand in the direction of the ruler of the empire. A moment later, the heroine's bloody finger touched the sovereign's lips. Particles of Lady Lars's blood ended up in her husband's mouth. The emperor did not expect such a turn of events. He was very surprised by his wife's behavior and did not know what to say to her. The girl leaned against her husband, carefully smearing his lips with her blood, and said that the gentleman should be patient and then he would be able to see everything for himself. Zefan Barb Verbena looks closely at his wife and realizes that he has never met such an unusual girl in his life. The festive ball was a success, and the guests went home. The main character is in her chambers and is treating a scratch she received during a conflict with Eliza Annette. The court doctor prescribed the girl to use ruby magic earrings, which perfectly heal any cut wounds on the patient's head, shoulders, and neck. Within minutes, the healing earrings had worked perfectly, and there was no trace left of the annoying scar. Shin Fenneworth brought his mistress some soothing tea to help her relax a little after a hard day. The main character's loyal servant looks at his mistress attentively and is happy for her with all his heart. He admires the fortitude and strength of spirit of this girl, who today not only withstood the blow of fate, but was also able to make a counterattack, and thus defeated her opponents. The young empress looks at herself in the mirror and realizes that the scratch has completely disappeared from her face. Now she can hunt for her emperor's favor again. After that, the main character smiled and asked her personal assistant if he was hurt by glass fragments or anything else today. She can heal Shin Fenneworth. The faithful servant bowed politely to his mistress and said that, fortunately, he was perfectly fine. All the glass fragments had flown past the valet today. The young empress is now a little absent-minded and sad. The girl is tired after a difficult day, which was filled with important events that will soon affect the future fate of Lady Lars. Shin Fenneworth turned to his mistress and said that someone else's wounds needed to be healed. After that, the main character's personal assistant brought Lady Lars's favorite teddy bear. The valet said that this toy either needed to be fixed or thrown in the trash. The young empress was in no condition to think about such abstract things now. The girl waved her hand and told her personal assistant to start fixing her favorite teddy bear. Shin Fenneworth immediately began repairing the stuffed toy, and the main character wondered how Eliza Annette was feeling and acting after the conflict at the princess's dinner party. Perhaps the young monarch's mistress was so scared that she had packed her things and already left the Sharial Empire. The young empress's personal valet said that according to his sources, the emperor's fourth concubine had already recovered somewhat and was going about her usual business. As if nothing had happened, the main character became sad again. The girl sighed heavily and said that it was all too easy. That's why she wasn't interested in it anymore. The young empress thought about her husband and said that now she had a very important task that needed to be solved quickly. The girl needed to find an approach to the ruler of the empire, who was now very angry with her for the scandal at the Christmas ball. Lady Lars sighed heavily again from boredom and sadness, and thought that she was very impatient to take revenge on the rest of the emperor's concubines, who deserved the most severe punishment. After this, the young empress looked out the window of her room to distract herself a little from her sad thoughts. The girl thought that while the emperor was angry with her, it would be better for her to hide and behave quietly and inconspicuously. The main character drank some calming tea and thought that she had a secret weapon that gave her an advantage over other people. Lady Lars knows all the events that will happen over the next 10 years. The girl also thought that she knew all the secrets of her native kingdom of Berry, because she was the personal advisor to the monarch of this country. When the main character was in prison, her personal assistant, Shin Fenneworth, told her about all the events that happened during her absence. Lady Lars thought for a moment and came to the logical conclusion that she was still alive and could fight off all her enemies thanks to her personal valet, who had not abandoned her in difficult times. The girl was very grateful to Shin Fenneworth for his faithful service. Suddenly, the main character's personal assistant asked her if he needed to fix all the other dolls that the girl had taken with her from the Berry Kingdom. Lady Lars, without turning around, said that the valet could fix them. The young empress thought about her future plans again. She understands that she knows all the events that await the Sharialt Empire in the next 10 years. This will help the girl survive in the future, defeat all enemies, and win the favor of the emperor. The main character approached her personal assistant and looked at the dolls he had just been repairing. The girl appreciated Shin Fenneworth's skill. He had done a great job. Lady Lars stroked the soft toy and thought that these dolls reminded her of the concubines of the great emperor, who uses them to achieve his political goals. The cruel ruler of the Sharialt Empire is looking for a worthy woman who can help him rule the state. He needs concubines only to establish diplomatic relations with other countries. All 6 concubines that Zephon Barb Verbena keeps in his palace are just toys in his deft hands, and nothing more. The main character remembered Eliza Annette. The relationship between the Sharialt Empire and the Ulain kingdom had been tense even before Zephon's father, Barb Verbena, became emperor. Lady Lars picked up the 2 dolls and thought that perhaps one of the emperors had once tried to take power into his own hands in the kingdom of Ulain, but had encountered great difficulties and strong resistance. After that, the main character picked up a doll that depicts the king and continued to recall the history of the relationship between the empire and the kingdom of Ulain. The young empress realized that she finally knew what to do next, and how to prove to her husband once again that she was very useful to him. It was not for nothing that the kingdom of Ulain did not want to enter into diplomatic and trade relations with the Sharialt Empire. That is why Eliza Annette now lives in the imperial castle. There is some secret here that needs to be revealed. The main character smiled mysteriously and thought that now she had a great chance to deal with Eliza Annette once and for all and improve trade relations with the kingdom of Ulain. Lady Lars also remembered, based on her previous incarnation, that there would come a day when the king of the state of Ulain would die. It would be a sensational event that would shake the entire kingdom. If the young empress takes advantage of this opportunity, she will be able to establish excellent trade relations with the state of Ulain with the help of Eliza Annette. The main character has just come up with a great plan that she is going to implement soon. The girl told her personal servant to apply for an exit from the imperial palace when he has completely finished repairing the toys. Shin Fennyworth listened carefully to his mistress and said that he would do everything and that she had nothing to worry about. The young empress continues to think over the details of her plan and is also glad that such wonderful thoughts visit her from time to time. Shin Fennyworth watches his mistress closely and smiles mysteriously. The young empress's personal servant is very pleased that his mistress managed to find the strength to survive and continue the fight for her future in the imperial palace. Meanwhile, the ruler of the Sharialt Empire, surrounded by his subordinates, is busy with important state affairs. News comes from all over the vast state, which includes many kingdoms, counties, and autonomous territories. At the moment, the emperor's advisors are busy looking for alternative seaports to avoid the plundering of the merchant ship called the White Meridian. This is done based on the information provided to the emperor by the main character. Zephon Barb Verbena ordered his advisors to immediately carry out everything exactly as he ordered, and under no circumstances to delay it. Otherwise, the empire could lose very important resources and enormous wealth. The advisors listen attentively to their master and are ready to carry out all his valuable instructions. They do not know why the emperor is so worried about the merchant ship White Meridian, but they do not want to anger their sovereign, who always knows what he is doing. Zephon Barb Verbena sent the advisors away and took off his uniform, going to his desk to attend to other important matters that could not be delayed. The emperor took some important document to study it, but suddenly something very unexpected happened. All the thoughts of the young ruler of the empire were focused on his wife. A strong-willed and tough sovereign should not think about such things in his office, sitting at his desk. But the emperor cannot help himself. Lady Lars does not leave his mind. This girl managed to touch some secret strings in the soul of Zephon Barb Verbena, which little by little began to sound in unison with his heart's dreams and aspirations. The young empress made an indelible impression on the sovereign. A few moments later, while thinking about his beautiful wife, the emperor touched his fingers to his lips and remembered how Lady Lars had smeared them with her blood after the incident that had happened at the princess's Christmas ball. The young ruler of the empire cannot fully comprehend what this strange and mysterious gesture of the young empress means and what exactly she wanted to tell him with it. But these memories are very pleasant for Zephon Barb Verbena. The emperor sits at his desk, lost in thought about abstract things. He can't remember the last time this happened to him before. All this puzzled the emperor, who was used to keeping his emotions under strict control. A new day had dawned. The main character, accompanied by her personal assistant, came to her husband's office to submit a personal request for the opportunity to leave the imperial palace for a while. The emperor looks closely at his wife and cannot understand why she suddenly needed to leave the castle. Lady Lars is pleased that her husband has granted her an audience and received her in his study today. Lately, the emperor has been trying to avoid his wife's company because he is very angry with her for the willfulness she committed at the dinner party. The written petition submitted by the young empress indicated the destination of her sudden trip. The girl's destination was the kingdom of Ulain. This greatly surprised the monarch. The main character smiled sweetly at her husband and asked him to say at least something and break his frightening silence. The young emperor looked at Lady Lars carefully and said that her too calm and contented face irritated him a little. After all, one can't smile all the time. The main character told her husband that she preferred to smile rather than cry. In addition, the girl said that she planned to stay in the kingdom of Ulain for no more than 2 days. After that, she would immediately return to the imperial palace. To relieve the emotional tension of the ruler, Lady Lars bowed respectfully to him and said that she apologized for unnecessary concern to the statesman, who had more important matters than her small request. The emperor looked closely at his beautiful wife, thought for a moment, and made the unexpected decision that he would also go to the kingdom of Ulain to keep the Empress company. The main character did not expect such a development of events. She looks at her master in surprise and tries to understand what he has in mind. Perhaps the master guesses the girl's intentions. Lady Lars asked again what the emperor had just said. He repeated to his wife his words about going with her to the kingdom of Ulain to accompany her personally on this journey. The insightful ruler of the empire looks intently into the eyes of his wife and tries to predict what reaction his unexpected words will cause in Lady Lars. The young empress immediately pulled herself together, smiled sweetly at her husband, and said that she would be very glad if he would deign to accompany her to the kingdom of Ulain. Suddenly, the emperor's personal assistant intervened in the conversation and said that His Majesty had a clear schedule of important matters for these days that could not be delayed. The ruler of the empire listened to his personal assistant and looked him straight in the eyes. After that, the proud monarch said that he makes his own schedule and is free to change it at any time as he pleases. The emperor's personal secretary realized that he had just gone too far and immediately apologized to his master for his words, so as not to receive a reprimand or something worse from him. When the audience with the ruler of the empire ended, the main character left his office and thought that her husband most likely had something in mind if he decided to accompany his wife to the kingdom of Ulain. Lady Lars thought about the situation for a while and came to the conclusion that everything was working out in her favor. This trip would help the main character get even closer to the emperor. Meanwhile, the young empress has decided to go elsewhere to attend to other important matters that need to be completed urgently. The personal assistant accompanies his mistress, not leaving her for a minute. News spreads quickly throughout the imperial palace. A maid has just informed Eliza Annette that Lady Lars will soon be leaving for a visit to the kingdom of Ulain, and the sovereign of the empire will be accompanying his wife on this journey. This unexpected news has greatly angered Lady Eliza. The third concubine of the sovereign, Sasha Lebedeva, also soon learned that the master would accompany his wife to the kingdom of Ulain. The girl was very surprised by this, because such an act was not typical of the cold, ice-like nature of the ruler of the empire. In addition, the personal servant of the sixth concubine of the emperor, Camilla Kuzinski, also reported to his mistress about the upcoming journey of Zephon Barb Verbena and his young wife. This news surprised and puzzled the head of the concubines, but she, as always, decided to remain in the shadows and observe what was happening. The next day, the August newlyweds set off for the kingdom of Ulain. The journey took the whole day, so the young imperial family decided to stop for the night at a small inn located on the border with the state of Ulain. When the main character entered the hotel, she realized that she found herself in a rather cozy house, but not very suitable for a high-ranking person to stay in. This place is more suitable for clients of average social status. The ruler of the empire was not particularly upset about this. He had seen a lot and had become accustomed to a lot during his endless military campaigns. Therefore, the young monarch cannot be confused by such trifles. He is simply content with what he has at the moment in order to get even more later. Lady Lars decided to ask her husband's personal assistant who would be sleeping in this room when they entered the rather cozy bedroom. The obliging man was very puzzled by this question. The servant helped his master take off his coat and said that the ruler of the empire had ordered a bedroom for the newlyweds with a large shared bed, which was designed for 2 people. The main character did not expect such a turn of events. The girl was very surprised when she heard the words of the imperial valet and thought that he had just made an unfortunate joke. The emperor took off his outer clothing and settled into a comfortable chair. After that, he looked closely at his wife and asked what she was unhappy about. Lady Lars immediately came to her senses and put on her favorite smiling mask. The girl said that she liked everything very much and was now happy to be in the same room with her husband. A few minutes later, the couple's servants left the room and the newlyweds sat down opposite each other in comfortable chairs. When they were alone, an awkward pause ensued. The main character wondered why the emperor decided to spend the night with her in the same chambers. There is some kind of intent here, but the girl cannot figure it out yet. To ease the tense situation, the couple decided to have dinner. This would help the aristocrats relax a little and satisfy their hunger after a tiring journey. Lady Lars watches her husband. He eats his dinner calmly and says nothing to the main character, completely focused on his food. As it turns out, this inn serves quite high quality and tasty dishes. What worries the young empress most is that she will sleep with the emperor in the same bed tonight. The girl did not expect such a turn of events, and now she does not know how to react to all this. The main character noticed that the ruler of the empire was looking at her strangely and unusually today. Perhaps this look is the key to the young monarch's unusual behavior. The emperor is silent and slowly finishes his red wine, which he prefers to drink after a hearty dinner. This makes Lady Lars wary. The ruler of the empire noticed that his wife often looked at her gold watch. The sovereign asked the girl why she started doing this. She had not had such a habit before. The main character smiled and said that the emperor thought she was looking at her watch a lot. The girl pretended that nothing special was happening right now. She just liked looking at beautiful, precious things. The young monarch listens attentively to the words of his interlocutor and does not believe a single word. The emperor is an experienced man who is famous for his insight and developed intuition. The emperor of the empire had ordered his assistants to question all the inn workers in advance, but they said that there was not a single person from the Berry Kingdom here, so Lady Lars was not going to meet with her father's people. Zefan Barb Verbena looks at his wife carefully, trying to figure out what she is planning. But for now, it remains an unsolved mystery that he has yet to solve. Shin Feeneyworth watches his mistress and her husband closely. He likes the way the young empress is taking the blows of fate. But the loyal servant believes that he should watch Lady Lars's back. The emperor looked closely at his wife's personal assistant and said that he constantly saw this young man next to the young empress. The main character looked at her servant and completely agreed with her husband's words. The girl said that Shin Fenneworth had always been faithful to her and supported her in difficult moments of her life. The ruler of the empire listened to his wife and said that he knew that Lady Lars had brought this valet with her from the kingdom of Berry. The main character looked at her interlocutor in surprise. She could not understand what the emperor was getting at by making such obvious remarks. He must have something in mind. The young empress thought for a moment and smiled meaningfully at her husband. After that, the girl asked the emperor why he was jealous of her faithful valet, who treated her like a friend. The ruler of the empire listened to the girl and was excited by her answer. He was a little angry with his wife for considering him a jealous man and asked Lady Lars if she was drunk. To this, the main character said that whatever the emperor's question was, so was his wife's answer. Men who respect and value themselves should ask girls questions of this nature. After dinner, the august persons went up to the second floor, accompanied by their servants, to settle into their common bedroom, which is intended for newlyweds. The emperor entered the room and began to examine it carefully in order to quickly get used to it. The main character looked again at the wall clock that hangs in the bedroom. She constantly checks what time it is. After that, the young empress ordered her personal assistant to urgently prepare a carriage for her, which she would still need today. Shin Fenneworth promised to carry out his mistress's order. The emperor heard his wife's order and asked why she needed a carriage now. The girl replied that she had one urgent matter that needed to be done today. After this, the main character wished her husband a pleasant rest and said that her business would not take much time, and she would soon return to the hotel to get a good night's sleep before tomorrow's worries. The young and hot emperor listened to his wife, and suddenly the male blood began to boil in his veins and desire awakened. He grabbed the beautiful golden-haired girl by the hand and said that he had a wonderful idea. The heated monarch approached the main character and said that today was a very unusual evening, because he would be sleeping in the same bed with Lady Lars for the first time. The young empress looks at her husband in surprise and, due to her inexperience, cannot understand what came over him. Perhaps the emperor was poisoned with something at dinner or drank too much alcohol. Zefan Barb Verbena grabbed the girl tightly in his arms and threw her on the bed. The main character lies on the bed in a state of deep shock. She did not expect such a turn of events. The young empress feels very confused in this situation. The girl could not have previously accepted that the great emperor was capable of such an attitude towards a respected lady from high society. Such rude treatment of a girl is not typical of this noble man. The ruler of the empire continues to insist on his own. He leans over his wife, who lies on the marital bed, and begins to untie his tie. After that, Zephon Barm Verbena smiled meaningfully and said that the young Empress was his wife. So why not take advantage of it now? The man thinks that this is a completely normal desire on his part. Lady Lars looks at her husband closely. She is confused and cannot understand what is happening to the Emperor, who has always been famous for his restraint and coldness towards the opposite sex. But for now, let's leave the main character in this piquant situation alone with her passionate husband. Now we need to understand what happened to the heroes of this fantastic story during the previous incarnation of Lady Lars. The Emperor is sitting at his desk in his office. Suddenly, Empress Nicole burst into the monarch's office, despite the prohibition of the sovereign's personal assistant. The girl urgently needs to talk to her august spouse. The ruler of the empire was angry with his wife for disturbing him without warning, and ordered her to be taken immediately from the study into the corridor. The Empress did not expect such a turn of events. The girl turned to her husband and said that she had come to his office for a reason. She wanted to tell the Emperor important information. Nicole suddenly burst into tears and asked her master for forgiveness for not being able to attend the joint meal with the Emperor. The girl said that something very sad had happened, so she couldn't stop her tears now. But she would definitely try to do it. The young Emperor listens attentively to his wife and cannot understand how he could marry such a stupid and impressionable lady who cannot string two words together without outside help. The Empress wondered if she should now say out loud the words she had come here for. Perhaps she should wait for a more appropriate moment. Lady Nicole decided that she had to go all the way and had nowhere to retreat. So the girl loudly told the Emperor that she was very happy to be his wife and loved him very much. The ruler of the empire listened attentively to his wife and sighed heavily. The only thing he needed now was these stupid declarations of love, which looked simply ridiculous from the outside. The Empress noticed that her words had no effect on her husband. So she decided to take a bolder step to attract the attention of the ruler of the empire, who had forgotten about her on their wedding night. Lady Nicole took off her robe and was left in only a nightgown, which perfectly emphasized the Empress's luxurious forms. The girl said that the Emperor treated her a little meanly when he left her all alone during her first night in the palace. The Empress added that she had been very lonely, and now she wanted to show the ruler what he was missing by not paying his wife the attention she deserved. Zephon Barb Verbena rose from his desk and approached Lady Nicole. After this, the cruel Emperor grabbed the girl by her golden hair and said that he would not tolerate such blatant impudence on the part of a woman who imagined herself to be a real empress. The Tsar looked sternly at his wife, not letting go of her hair, and said that she would be severely punished if she dared to enter his chambers again without permission. Lady Nicole is in a state of deep shock. She did not expect such a turn of events. The girl covered her half-naked body with her hands and again burst into tears from pain and grief. The Emperor threw his stupid wife out of the office and said that for him she was just trash who accidentally ended up in the imperial palace for political reasons. Lady Nicole stands in the hallway. She is shaking from cold and disappointment. The girl cannot believe that all this is happening to her, because she is used to completely different treatment in her father's palace in the Kingdom of Berry. The action takes place again in a roadside inn during the second incarnation of the main character. Lady Lars lies on a bed, and her husband bends over her, who is experiencing an irresistible attraction to the girl at the moment. The main character stares at her husband and thinks about why he never showed such interest in her before. But now he is pestering her. It is all very strange. Lady Lars did not expect this development of the situation. She urgently needs to come up with something original to diffuse the tense situation, which is not in her plans for now. The young Empress looked again at the wall clock hanging in the bedroom and thought that she might be late with the business she had planned for this evening. Lady Lars regained her composure and sobriety of thought as her emotions subsided. She told her husband, who was leaning over her, that she was greatly honored by his attention, but that she had important matters to attend to that could not be delayed. The Emperor smiled meaningfully when he heard his wife's words. It seemed to him that the girl was joking now. In such a situation, one cannot think about any business. The ruler of the empire ran his hand through the girl's golden hair and asked her if business was more important to her than her husband. Zephon Barb Verbena thought for a moment and added that Lady Lars should not miss such a wonderful opportunity to get closer to her husband. Otherwise, there might not be another time. The Emperor continues to play with his wife's golden hair. He said that now the main character has a great chance to prove her value and indispensability to her husband, so that she doesn't have to do it in other ways. Then the ruler of the empire will absolutely not care whether his wife told the truth about the attack on the merchant ship called the White Meridian. The emperor looked closely at the beautiful face of his wife and said that if after this night together he had an heir from Lady Lars, then she would be able to strengthen her position as a useful socialite. The main character listens attentively to the emperor and looks at his handsome face. He has already started talking about a joint heir. These are some strange and inappropriate words now. Lady Lars raised her hand to the emperor's face and gently stroked it. The girl thought that she had dreamed of such a moment more than once. But if she gave in to her emotions now, all her plans would turn to dust. Therefore, the young empress decided to act as she had originally planned. And conceiving an heir is a simple matter, and there will still be time in the future. The main character looks at the emperor and tries to find the right words to refuse him now and not quarrel with him. Meanwhile, the sovereign has promised to make Lady Lars even his main mistress. He believes that this will be a great honor for the girl. The young empress remembered her previous incarnation, during which the emperor had already made her a similar proposal, which was worthy not of a noble lady, but of some depraved girl of easy virtue. If then, in the terrible conditions of imprisonment, the main character refused the humiliating offer of the emperor and preserved her honor, then why should she agree to this offer now? Now, Lady Lars is in a more advantageous position. The main character always remembered her honor. Even when she had nothing left, she had pride in herself, her family, and her native kingdom of Berry. Lady Lars thought that if she had agreed to the emperor's proposal and given up her position back then in prison, she would not now have had the bitter experience that she had received through her suffering for 10 long and painful years. Without this invaluable experience, the girl would not have been able to survive in the very toxic society of socialite ladies who inhabit the imperial palace and fight for the attention of the proud ruler. Now Lady Lars would already be dead, or would have joined the list of the sovereign's concubines. The main character remembered the promise she made to herself that she would never return to the life of the stupid and naive girl she used to be. Over 10 long and painful years, Lady Lars became different. She walked with dignity through the fire of pain and suffering to rise from the ashes to a new life. The main character returned to reality, ceasing her dreams about her past incarnation. She grabbed the emperor by the collar, smiled sweetly at him, and told him that she was more than just a lover. The mighty ruler of the great empire did not expect such an answer from his wife. He looks at the girl in confusion and cannot understand what she wants from him. After a few seconds, Lady Lars gathered her strength and gently pushed away her persistent suitor. She said that she asked for forgiveness, but she urgently needed to attend to important matters while time allowed. For the emperor, the girl's refusal was a completely new and unexpected experience. This had never happened to him before. But there is a first time for everything. The main character quickly put on her black coat. Before leaving, she wished her husband not to be bored during her absence. The emperor looks closely at this beautiful girl with golden hair and understands that he likes her very much. Lady Lars also understands that the ruler of the empire cares about her. That is why she behaves so boldly and freely. Perhaps such behavior will bring her luck. At the very door that leads to the corridor, the main character turned around and told her somewhat disappointed husband that next time she would pester him herself when she was in the right mood for it. The young empress left the room, and her annoyed and puzzled husband remained in the bedroom, sitting on the empty bed, which still retained the warmth of Lady Lars's beautiful body. The young emperor clutched his head and thought about how stupid he had just made himself out to be in front of his wife, who had beaten him in 2 counts. He needed to control his emotions better. Otherwise, this could end badly. After a few minutes of mental anguish, Zephon Barverbina thought that everything was not as bad as it might seem at first glance. By and large, the sovereign should laugh at this stupid situation and draw the necessary conclusions so as not to lose next time. The emperor finally came to his senses and remembered the words of the main character about the importance of Lady Lars and the wrong opinion of the sovereign on this matter. Apparently, the young empress was able to convince her husband. The main character is riding in a carriage driven by her personal assistant. The girl is thinking about today's situation that happened in the bedroom. Lady Lars was very close to her defeat today because she almost gave in to her feelings and almost agreed to become the emperor's mistress. It's terrible. The main character began to play with a lock of her golden hair, just as her august husband did. This man's touches were very gentle and skillful. They really pleased the girl, who was not very experienced in such matters. The young empress does not think that the monarch treated her rudely today, but the girl also does not regret the choice she made. Lady Lars knows what her husband needs most of all. It is the girl's powerful magical abilities, which will be passed on to their children and make the dynasty invincible. Suddenly, Shin Fennyworth stopped the carriage and informed his mistress that there was a small problem on the way. Therefore, the main character will have to wait a little before continuing on her way. The young Empress's personal assistant tries to find out more about the problem that has arisen along the way and what its true cause is, in order to help eliminate it if possible. Shin Fennyworth watches from a high place as bandits surround a carriage and prepare to rob it. He asks his mistress what she is going to do now. The main character decided to intervene in this situation right away to resolve it. The girl's personal assistant did not expect that she would not be afraid of the robbers who could harm her or even kill her. The young Empress resolutely walks towards danger and smiles mysteriously. From the outside, it seems that she is not afraid of anything in this life. Forest bandits are doing their dirty work. One of the bandits opened the carriage door and is going to kill the passenger who is begging for mercy. The main character quietly approached this group of bandits. The leader of the bandits is looking forward to a quick profit. He is ready to deliver the final fatal blow to the passenger of the plundered carriage. But today is not his day. The bandit heard the girl's steps approaching and looked at her warily. He could not understand where this noble lady in a black coat and hat appeared from in such a remote place at night. Lady Lars did not waste time on empty talk and persuasion of the bandits. The girl immediately used her powerful fire magic and burned to ashes the main bandit who was about to kill the unfortunate passenger. The accomplices of the burned bandit were very scared and confused after they saw the burning body of their commander. They wanted to immediately run away in different directions, retreating into the forest thicket. But Lady Lars stopped them. The girl set another bandit on fire with her powerful fire magic. This blocked the escape path of the rest of the gang and put them into a state of complete stupor. The main character enjoys her magical power. She is ready to incinerate all the bandits she meets on her way. One of the forest bandits, who hid in the bushes, tried to kill the young Empress by shooting her with a bow. But he missed. The main character noticed this, and the punishment did not take long to come. Within seconds, all that was left of this impudent fellow was a small, smoking pile of ashes. Lady Lars is relentless and terrible in her wrath. The young Empress thought that she was very sorry that her husband was not here now. He would have really enjoyed this delightful spectacle of fire magic in practice. The bandits decided to surround and attack Lady Lars. The girl immediately remembered her previous military experience from her previous incarnation. It was time to apply it again in a similar situation. The main character smiled again and realized that she loved fighting and got real pleasure from it. A few seconds later, the powerful flame flared up with renewed vigor and enveloped everyone who dared to stand in the way of Lady Lars. The young Empress enjoys her free mastery of fire magic, which came to her during her previous incarnation 2 months before she was captured as a result of the betrayal of her birth family. The main character's personal assistant watches everything that is happening and cannot believe what he is seeing. Shin Fennyworth did not expect that his mistress handles fire magic so easily. Within a few minutes, the forest clearing was completely cleared of the bandits, leaving only small, smoldering embers that would soon be dispersed by the cool night breeze. The young Empress remembered that during her previous incarnation, a rumor reached the Berry Kingdom about an attack by forest bandits on a carriage near a bridge called Hash. The criminals were soon apprehended and punished to the fullest extent of the law. The main character also remembered that some people who were citizens of the kingdom of Ulain were attacked in this carriage. Perhaps this will now become an important circumstance for the girl, which will affect her future fate. That is why Lady Lars often looked at her watch today. Otherwise, she might come to the aid of these people too late. The young Empress approached the rescued passengers of the crew and said that the trouble was over, and they were completely safe. The confused travelers, who were very lucky today, try to thank their savior, but they find it difficult to speak coherently due to the state of shock. Lady Lars smiled meaningfully and said that she was walking nearby. When she heard the screams, she immediately rushed to help. The travelers, who were very lucky today, came to their senses a little and were able to express their gratitude to the young Empress for saving them. The main character decided to take a closer look at who was in front of her now. Apparently, the travelers would like to remain unrecognized, but Lady Lars already guesses who the passenger of the carriage is. The young queen came closer to the travelers. She immediately recognized one of them. It turned out to be the ruler of the kingdom of Ulain. Quite an unexpected meeting, considering all the circumstances. The main character looked closely at the aristocrat she had just saved and asked what he was doing here at such a late hour. accompanied by a girl who was not his wife. Lady Lars immediately remembered that during her previous incarnation, the king of the state of Ulain was killed during his secret meeting with his mistress. The young empress decided to enter into the monarch's delicate situation and asked him whether she should keep this meeting a secret. The aristocrat listened attentively to his savior and decided to pretend that she was mistaken and had mixed everything up. He said that everything was not as the girl thought. Then the main character decided to remind the king of the state of Ulain who she was and politely introduced herself. They had already met once in the kingdom of Berry. Therefore, the aristocrat may not deceive Lady Lars. The young empress remembers very well the king of the state of Ulain, who came to the kingdom of Berry several times to discuss various matters with her father. The aristocrat looked closely at his interlocutor and finally recognized her in her new form with golden hair. The last time he saw the princess of the Berry Kingdom, she looked like a bat. The dark image of the main character surfaced in the memory of the rescued monarch, and he was finally convinced that the eldest daughter of the king of the allied state of Berry stood before him. The rescued sovereign remembered the sad story of Princess Lars and thought that fate had always been unfair to her. Her relatives made her the culprit of all the troubles of their kingdom. Although in fact, only they and their incompetent policy were to blame for everything. The confused monarch stares at his savior and does not know what to do in this situation. The aristocrat is very grateful to the girl for his unexpected rescue. But he also cannot allow everyone to find out about his secret love. The main character remembered that in his past life, the king of the state of Ulain lost his life along with his mistress during a treacherous attack by forest bandits. But now he was saved by Lady Lars. This should change the fate of the young empress. The monarch's savior does not condemn him for his secret affection. We are all not perfect in this world. But the main character wants her plan to work, and thanks to the current situation, diplomatic relations between the Ulain Kingdom and the Great Chariot Empire have improved significantly. During Lady Lars's previous incarnation, this unfaithful king died along with his mistress. The entire country soon learned of this. An incredible scandal erupted, which brought many misfortunes to the kingdom of Ulain. The monarch decided to ask his savior how she was doing now. The girl replied that she was now the official wife of the ruler of the Chariot Empire. The main character looked closely at the king's young mistress and asked what she should do in this situation. If the wife of the unfaithful monarch found out about his secret dates, it would be a real disaster. The king of the state of Ulain listened to his savior and asked her not to tell anyone about his secret meetings with his beloved girl. Lady Lars would greatly oblige him with this. He would do for the young empress whatever she wanted. The main character realized that now was the time to begin implementing her plan. She asked the unfaithful monarch what diplomatic relations his kingdom currently had with the Chariot Empire. The aristocrat replied that these state relations are not very good now due to many different reasons that have already formed a long time ago. The main character listened attentively to her interlocutor and said that she had an offer that the king of the state of Ulain could not refuse. After that, the young empress smiled mysteriously at the monarch she had saved. Meanwhile, Zephon Barb Verbena is resting peacefully in the cozy room he rented at the inn for himself and his beautiful wife. Suddenly, the door opened and the young empress entered the room. A satisfied smile was shining on her face. Apparently, her important business had ended very successfully. The girl greeted her husband and asked why he was still awake at such a late hour. Deep down, the emperor is very happy that his wife has returned home safe and sound. But he doesn't like that she is walking alone on some secret business. The main character looked at her husband tenderly and told him not to be jealous of her imaginary suitors. Lady Lars simply took a short walk around the neighborhood. The emperor listened attentively to his wife and said with bitterness in his voice that the young empress would rather spend her free time with him than walk around who knows where at night. The main character took off her coat and hung it on a hanger. She listens attentively to her husband's words and thinks that his jealousy is starting to bother her a little. After this, Lady Lars approached her husband and handed him a document that he should read immediately. This surprised the young monarch. The emperor began to read the document that his wife handed him. The girl said that during her walk, she accidentally met the king of the state of Ulain and concluded an important trade and diplomatic agreement with him. Zephon Barb Verben's eyes widened in surprise. The young monarch read the treaty between his empire and the kingdom of Ulain. He had never seen such favorable trade conditions. The emperor looks at his beautiful wife and cannot understand how she managed to make such a wonderful deal. The main character showed her master this lucrative contract and remembered how the king of the state of Ulain carefully wrote each letter on the paper with a hand that was shaking with excitement. The ruler of the empire decided to take a closer look at the trade and diplomatic agreement between the states and took it into his own hands. At the end of the document, the monarch saw the king's real signature. Its forgery was out of the question. The main character looked closely at her husband and said that the ruler of the Ulain kingdom also sent the emperor an invitation to his castle to improve the tense relationship with him. The young monarch immediately asked his wife how she had managed to pull off this remarkable deal in such a short time. The girl replied that she had just been a little lucky that day. After that, the young empress came closer to her husband and started flirting with him. The girl said that now she was in the right mood to continue where they had left off a few hours ago, being on the bed. This time, Lady Lars told her husband that he should not miss the wonderful opportunity that was now open to him. The ruler of the empire looks closely at his interlocutor, who has begun to actively flirt with him and has not yet taken any active steps. The main character moved even closer to her august husband. She asked the emperor to at least kiss her if he did not want to indulge in the full-fledged pleasures of love right now. It is very difficult for the young monarch to resist such a strong temptation. He let go of the treaty with the kingdom of Julia, which his wife had just concluded, and gave full freedom to his feelings. But the shrewd emperor was not as simple as it might seem at first glance. When Lady Lars went to a secret night meeting, the ruler of the empire ordered his assistants to follow her unnoticed. The emperor's personal assistant sent his agents to follow the young empress and immediately report to him the results of the secret surveillance. If the spies fail to do this or make any mistake, they will be severely punished without trial or investigation. They will disappear in an unknown direction and will never be found again. The emperor always uses his well-trained spies if he encounters any secret events that arouse his suspicions. This allows the monarch to know everything that happens in his vast realm. At some point, the ruler of the empire began to suspect his wife of spying for the kingdom of Ulain. Therefore, he decided to send spies who would find out the whole truth about Lady Lars. The scouts accompanied the young empress all the way to the Hash Bridge, near which forest bandits attacked the carriage in which the king of the state of Ulain was traveling with his young mistress. The spies saw the main character destroy all the bandits with her powerful fire magic. They also saw the rescue of the passengers of the robbed carriage. The scouts returned to the inn and told the emperor's personal assistant what they had learned today. The secret agents were especially frightened and surprised by the monstrous magic with which the young empress dealt with the forest bandits with such effortless ease. The spies also told the monarch's personal assistant that they saw Lady Lars threatening the king of the state of Ulain, that she would tell everyone about his secret meetings with his young mistress if he did not make a deal that would be beneficial to the Sharialt Empire. When the scouts observed the emperor's wife, they got the impression that she knew in advance about the attack on the royal carriage. During the report, one of the scouts suggested that the young empress had deliberately arranged for the forest bandits to attack the carriage in which the king of the state of Ulain was traveling with his young mistress. A day later, the main character and her husband returned to the emperor's ancestral palace. Lady Lars is busy with her toilet, and next to her, as always, is her personal assistant, Shin Fenneworth. The young empress recalls the morning at the inn, which came after a passionate night of love with her master. When the sovereign woke up, he behaved as usual, showing no change in his attitude towards his wife. On the way back, the couple was silent the whole time. For some reason, neither of them wanted to talk. Each of them had thoughts in their heads that needed a lot of attention. The young empress is worried that after a passionate night at the inn, the emperor will enroll her as one of his concubines and will no longer want to have anything to do with her. But some time has passed and the girl has not yet seen any changes from the ruler of the empire. Now the main character is sitting in front of the mirror in her chambers and thinking that the night of love was a good and useful event in her life in all respects. Suddenly, Lady Lars felt a little sad. She thought that the ruler of the empire might cool towards her after her impregnable fortress of love had fallen before him. The young empress's personal assistant watches as she upsets herself and laments the fact that she only exists in her imagination. A few minutes later, the main character turned to her personal assistant and asked him if he had ever done women's hair. Shin Fenneworth told his mistress that he had never done it before. Lady Lars's personal valet bowed respectfully to her and said that he could try to do so if the young lady ordered him to. Her wish was an immutable law for the assistant. The young empress allowed Shin Fenneworth to style her golden hair. Meanwhile, the girl thinks about how she has proven her usefulness to her master for the second time. The cooperation agreement with the kingdom of Ulain, which the main character obtained by intimidating the local monarch, should bring great benefits to the emperor and his domains. In addition, the king, saved by the young empress, promised that he would make every effort to establish diplomatic relations with the Sharialt Empire and its ruler. The main character continues to reflect on the large amount of work she was able to do in just a few days. She came to the conclusion that she deserves a worthy reward. When Lady Lars finished her morning toilet, she decided to take a walk around the palace and her husband's estate. Suddenly, the girl heard some noise at the front entrance to the estate and asked the maid about it. The maid reported to the mistress that the emperor's fourth concubine, Eliza Annette, was getting ready to leave. Today, a notice came from the kingdom of Ulain that the lady should return home immediately. It seems that the main character's plan was successful. Unhappy and frustrated, Eliza Annette does not want to return to the provincial kingdom of Ulain. But the girl can do nothing. State policy turned out to be much stronger than her personal desires. The emperor's fourth concubine was forcibly taken out of the palace and put into a carriage. The servants quickly loaded the girl's things and prepared the carriage for the journey to the kingdom of Ulain. Eliza Annette tried to resist and swear at the servants. She even threatened to kill them, but it was all useless. The friends of the aristocrat expelled from the imperial palace are watching everything that happens near the main entrance to the emperor's estate. They are very scared and confused because they are afraid of being in Eliza Annette's place. Lady Eliza continues to resist the pressure of the young monarch's servants. She stated that she is the emperor's fourth concubine, so she cannot be touched. But one of the servants said that the girl's departure has already been agreed upon with the ruler of the empire. Zephon's concubine, Barba Verbena, did not expect such a turn of events. She was very surprised when she heard that she was leaving the palace on the orders of her master. The girl is at a loss and does not know what to do. The servant said that he could quote the exact words of the emperor, who said that Lady Eliza Annette was no longer needed here. She could go to the kingdom of Ulain. She had to leave today. The concubine was speechless for a few moments when she heard the cruel and cynical words of the valet. Lady Eliza thought about the wonderful time she had spent with the young monarch in his luxurious palace. She also realized that all her dreams and aspirations had just been shattered. The friends of the emperor's fourth concubine look at the unfortunate girl who was humiliatingly thrown out of his palace by the emperor like a used rag, with confusion. These ladies feel very sorry for Eliza Annette, but they cannot say a single word in her defense, because this would result in a cruel punishment or expulsion from the estate. The main character carefully watches the process of her rival's expulsion and understands that in this battle, the final and irrevocable victory was won by her, Lady Lars from the kingdom of Berry, the legal wife of the powerful emperor.